I have a sweet at the end of the world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451. 166 BMWs flying in the sky. Jiang Chen swore that this was definitely the most spectacular fireworks he had ever seen. If the one in virtual reality was not counted. Thick smoke suddenly obscured the launch vehicle. Rockets whistled and shot into the distance like arrows in the sky. In just 20 seconds, 320 rockets were fired. Looking at the smoke column that was getting farther and farther away in the distance, Jiang Chen couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's a pity that I can't see the explosion effect." Chen Weiguo silently handed the tablet back to Jiang Chen's arms. He had just set the combat instructions. "Oh, by the way, there is also this thing." Jiang Chen smiled, took the tablet from Chen Weiguo, and looked at the battlefield. At the broken bridge, the mutants curled up in the bunker, holding the machine gun, were ready to deal with the NAC soldiers' positions on the other side of the river. Yesterday, the NAC people tried to build a pontoon bridge and attack 3 times, but they were suppressed by the shells, machine guns and recoilless guns they had. The mortars and electromagnetic guns on the other side caused them a lot of trouble, but it didn't matter. All the mutants had no doubt that, as long as they persisted, the first ones to be exhausted would definitely be these stupid humans. They are about to give up. We have enough ammunition and we are stronger. When the cold winter comes, it will be their death. Standing behind the position, the mutant centurion wearing a clothing made of deathclaw leather, waving the machine gun in his hand, roared loudly to his comrades crawling in the battle position, and encouraged their morale. In the mutant society, clothes often symbolize strength and status. Only the warriors who defeated the Deathclaw alone are qualified to wear its skin as a battle robe. What is that? But at this moment, a mutant squatting behind the anti-tank gun roared in a rough voice, and pointed his finger at the black spot on the horizon. "It may be their little toys, don't panic. We have anti-aircraft machine guns and EMP." Muttering rudely, the mutant centurion pulled off the telescope on his chest. The toys he was referring to were naturally the NAC's Hummingbird drones. When they found that a single EMP grenade would send a drone flying over and fall to the ground like an electrocuted fly, no one was afraid of these gadgets anymore. When they encountered a drone, they would pull the fuse of the EMP grenade. Although EMP would also cause the red dot sights on their guns to fail, no one cared about that. Mutants don't need to aim, they just need to vent their firepower. The Centurion's ugly eyebrows were squeezed together, and he adjusted the focus and looked intently at the black dot on the horizon. Bang! The telescope in his hand fell to the ground. Just as the mutants around him looked at him in confusion, his ugly face gradually twisted. "Get down!" he yelled, and in the confused eyes of the mutants, he threw himself into a trench nearby. But it didn't make any sense. Boom boom boom. The overwhelming rockets rained down death. The mutants who were entrenched in the trenches and bunkers witnessed this purgatory-like scene in horror, as well as the flying limbs of their comrades and themselves. The flames of the explosion covered every inch of soil, plowing over the mutants' positions like plowing the land, leaving behind a pile of broken weapon wreckage and charred limbs and arms. The coverage of the rockets detonated the ammunition boxes in the trenches and foxholes, triggering a secondary explosion, and the trenches were a bloody mess. A round of washing the ground was over, but the mutants' nightmare was not over yet. The vortex engine sprayed, and the power armor was the first to cross the river. The engineers ran forward and placed a pontoon bridge for tanks to pass. Following closely were soldiers wearing mechanical exoskeletons and tanks with roaring engines, with steel plates hanging on their chests. Thousands of mutants holding machine guns stood up from positions farther away and rushed madly to the river. They advanced while firing, trying to regain control of the riverbank. Some mutants even carried mortar barrels and fired horizontally, and some even ran wildly with self-destructing nuclear bombs. There were also lead mutants holding power hammers. Unless they were facing the Type 50 electromagnetic cannon, they were almost invincible with their armor and recovery ability. They ignored the rain of bullets and roared towards the NAC position. However, before they ran halfway, they were horrified to find that the rockets in the distance were whistling again. The thick smoke in the distance dotted the wasteland full of ruins, like a pen tip sketching the rugged curve bit by bit. Rockets kept rising into the air, then falling, raining death on the mutants in the distance. The flying shrapnel could not scratch the lead mutants' armor, but shattered their internal organs and brains. Even though the mutants' recovery ability was extremely terrifying, they could not get rid of the fact that they were biological beings. Facing the Naxx artillery fire, the mutants were much more cautious. They huddled in foxholes, pulling apart their dense positions, trying to use loose formations to deal with the Naxx bombardment. There were only two thoughts that kept them going. They were running low on ammunition. This was just the last madness. However, it turned out that this was just wishful thinking. Jiang Chen had a lot of rockets, more than they could imagine. Facing the loose formation of the mutants, Jiang Chen also changed the repertoire of the Stalin organ, maintaining an output frequency of 40 rounds per minute. 8 BM-21 rocket launchers fired in succession, covering the mutants' positions at a wide angle. At the same time, the First Corps also stopped the offensive under Jiang Chen's order and stopped to appreciate the performance of this symphony of explosions. The screen of the flat panel flickered with flames. The continuous artillery fire caused a large number of residential buildings that had been in disrepair for a long time to collapse, burying the mutants huddled inside alive. Although landmark buildings such as the Jiao City Sports Center remained standing, they also looked precarious from the outside. After more than an hour of continuous bombing, the entire downtown area of Jiao City was in ruins, as if it had been run over by a bulldozer. Tired of the shaking of the screen, Jiang Chen stuffed the screen back into Chen Weiguo's hands. Looking at the fire on the screen, Chen Weiguo was secretly shocked. To be honest, he really didn't expect that this old-fashioned weapon could still burst out with such terrifying combat power. It's so shocking. 10 minutes later, Chen Weiguo put down the tablet in his hand in admiration. How many have been thrown? Jiang Chen asked casually. Chen Weiguo glanced at the pile of empty wooden boxes and roughly estimated about 5,000 have been fired. Only 5,000? There are still 15,000 left. Jiang Chen smacked his lips and squinted his eyes at the smoke column 14 kilometers away. Wait, 5,000? Calculating carefully, one rocket is $2,000 and 30 rockets are $60,000. Almost a BMW. These 5,000 rockets were thrown out. Jiang Chen couldn't help but feel a pain in his heart. Although he was not short of money, it was still very painful to see these 166 BMWs flying in the sky. Inside the Jiao City Sports Center, Bo sat in a chair with a gloomy face. The sound of explosions in his ears made him extremely irritated. Sitting opposite him was Troy, the leader of the mutants, and his face was as gloomy as his. What should we do now? The Dusk Church helped them blow up the bridge, provided them with a large amount of military supplies, and brought them the information that Wanhei City is experiencing an outbreak of alien species, and these people can't hold on for long. However, the last piece of information was obviously a false report. He didn't know whether there was an outbreak of alien species in Wanhei City, but the group of humans in front of him clearly didn't look like they couldn't hold out for long. I've said long ago that we should retreat strategically to the west. These people are not easy to deal with. The merchants in Hangzhou are easier to bully in comparison. Bo closed his eyes and said softly, mutants won't retreat. We will never compromise with inferior humans. We will tear them apart and stuff them into a meat grinder to make sausages. Troy grinned and said cruelly, is that so? Isn't it me, a human, who is sitting in front of you and has helped you hold on for so long? You really think that you are something just because you have a head? Bo sneered in his heart, but didn't say anything, because he knew that this was not the time for internal strife. Moreover, a few hours ago, his judgment was actually more inclined to the mutants' side would win, otherwise he wouldn't be sitting here. The Naxx soldiers were staring at them, and the noisy sound of artillery fire continued. Retreat is definitely not an option. Leaving the bunker now means death. Even without rockets, two legs cannot outrun a tank. Abandoning the bunker means a massacre for the mutants and the Church of Twilight. Is this a dead end? This is not the first time he has experienced this situation. When he was cleared out by the military police of the Northern Union District, he had also fallen into a similar situation. The only difference is that he is not without a glimmer of hope at this moment. Boyu looked at the ring on his hand. The blood crystal reflected a charming and dangerous glow under the light. "When are you willing to send your men?" Troy said rudely. His men were constantly dying, but his allies had not made any movement. Looking at the face reflected in the blood crystal mirror, Boyu said softly, "Don't worry, it will be soon." Chapter 452, Siege of the Sports Center. Mutants have a fatal weakness, that is, their huge bodies can't even fit themselves into the car. Although they always proudly call themselves mobile armor, with steel plates on their chests, this is actually a helpless move. If the Church of Twilight hadn't modified the truck for them, they wouldn't even be able to control the vehicles for transportation. In the early battles with the Fishbone base, they learned the small car carrying a big cannon tactic of loading the cannon on the truck. But when facing the Jagdtiger II, this simple high mobility anti-tank gun became a joke. The more common anti-tank gun in the wasteland is the Type 99, which is made by dismantling the main gun of the Type 99 light tank that was mass installed before the war. However, the Type 99 shells can't penetrate the thick front armor of the Jagdtiger II at all, and at most break the track and damage the observation hole. However, a 5 kg class mass bullet from the Jagdtiger II can dismantle it into parts with the gun in the vehicle. So the self-aware mutants didn't send out the armored troops at all, but chose to dismantle the gun and ambush in the shooting pit. That is why the First Corps encountered no resistance from the armored forces along the way. The 8-hour cleanup ended, with 20,000 shells being poured on the positions of 20,000 mutants. The flames ignited by the high temperature burned fiercely in the war zone, and even the steel in the entire war zone melted into molten iron. Jaya City did not directly encounter the nuclear explosion, and the paint, organic decoration materials, etc. of the buildings had not been consumed. At this moment, they were all ignited under the coverage of NAC rockets, emitting toxic black smoke, high temperature, poisonous gas, and ruins. Many mutants did not die from being buried alive, or from the explosion, but from subsequent fires and suffocation. After the rockets were poured, Jiang Chen and Cheng Weiguo came to the NAC position. When the soldiers saw the marshal in person, they raised their guns and burst into warm cheers. How is prestige established? When everyone was hesitant, facing the unbreakable fortress that could not be conquered for a long time, you stood in front of them. Because of your arrival, the unbreakable fortress also collapsed. Then at this time, you are a hero. All the glory belongs to you. There is no need for too many words. After all, it is not logic, but emotion that ignites the fire of personal worship. Facing the soldiers who were whistling and cheering for victory, Jiang Chen smiled and raised his hand to signal them that there was no need to be polite. The war was not over yet, so they should keep their eyes on their positions and wait for the order to charge. After walking around the position and getting familiar with the soldiers, Jiang Chen took Cheng Weiguo to the center of the position and admired the raging fire. This was no longer a war. With an absolute advantage in firepower, it was more like a massacre. How long do you think this fire will burn? Jiang Chen asked casually. If it doesn't rain, I'm afraid it will burn until tomorrow. Cheng Weiguo looked up at the dark clouds in the sky and said, then let the soldiers rest for a while. There won't be a fight for a while. After explaining, Jiang Chen turned and walked towards the command vehicle. Yes. Cheng Weiguo saluted, took out the command tablet, and began to give orders. The fire was raging, but there was a turnaround in the early morning. Perhaps the mutants' wailings brought God's mercy, and a few raindrops fell from the sky. Seeing this, Cheng Weiguo immediately called up the soldiers who had finished their rest and prepared to issue the order to charge. Gradually, the rain became heavier. Bean-sized raindrops poured down from the sky, hitting the fire, hitting the mud, rising from the red-hot steel, and sliding down the steel shell of the power armor. Charge. A loud shout came from the radio channel, and the First Corps front began to move slowly. The electromagnetic catapult sound of the mortar sounded, and dozens of flares were launched into the air, decorating the area near the sports center with orange-red flames as bright as day. The armored troops crossed the river without any suspense, and the steel boots of the power armor extinguished the sparks and advanced towards the direction of the gymnasium. The heavy rain washed away the dust and haze on the ground and cooled the dead bodies. The soldiers who walked by with rifles couldn't help but hold their breath. The pungent smell of barbecue in the air could not be washed away even by the heavy rain. Not only mutants died under the rockets, but also tens of thousands of imprisoned survivors in Jiao City. However, in the apocalypse, where human feelings are cold, even the former Rebel Alliance soldiers rescued by the 1st Corps from Site Number 7 did not shed a tear for the dead. Death is too normal. More than 3,000 soldiers surrounded the standing sports center, ready to wipe out the last remaining enemies. 1,000 engineers were also issued rifles by Cheng Weiguo to search and rescue human captives who might have survived in the ruins, and to rob mutants who were not dead. It must be said that mutants have a strong vitality. Even in such a hell, there are occasionally survivors. Sitting on the top cover of the Huntsman 2nd, wearing a mechanical exoskeleton, Jiang Chen heard a roar from afar. Under the pouring rain, a dark mutant shook off the rubble pressing on him, waving the power hammer in his hand, and hammered an engineer into the sky like playing golf. Lead mutant. The 3 engineers nearby raised their rifles in fear and fired at the lead mutant, but the jumping sparks clearly told that it was all in vain. Looking at the dark figure in silence, this lead mutant brought back some not so good memories for Jiang Chen. He reached out and tapped the turret under his buttocks, and the Tiger 2nd immediately understood. The vehicle stopped, and the turret began to turn. When Jiang Chen made eye contact with the mutant 200 meters away, the turret under his buttocks shook violently. A faint blow-up of light sprayed out, and the electromagnetic gun was fired. The 5-kilogram mass bullets mashed the raindrops and drew a white mist-like track in the rain. When the white mist dissipated, the lead mutant was left with only a pile of rotten meat. The 3 engineers who were rescued sat up from the ground and waved to Jiang Chen to express their gratitude. Jiang Chen just smiled and raised his hand, then signaled the Tiger 2nd to continue moving forward. Through the rain, the soldiers of the 1st Corps had surrounded the sports center and exchanged fire with the mutant troops on the street 300 meters in front of the sports center. When the Tiger 2nd, in which Jiang Chen was sitting, drove to a position close to the front line, he jumped out of the car. The power armor 20 meters in front of him was holding a machine gun, venting firepower at the mutants' positions. The war had reached such a one-sided point. To be honest, Jiang Chen actually wanted to wear the power armor and have fun. However, when he saw several individual rockets flying past, one of which crashed the power armor into a store on the street, Jiang Chen gave up this plan. After all, this is not the real world, and the power armor is not invincible. Several engineers ran forward in the distance, braving the hail of bullets, to drag the power armor and the injured out. Walking to the shed next to the command vehicle, Jiang Chen took off his helmet and shook off the rain, and found Cheng Weiguo and asked, "How is the situation at the front? It's really fucking exciting at the end." Cheng Weiguo laughed. He has never fought such an exciting battle. Jiang Chen grinned. Damn, all the money he spent was his money, $40 million US, to buy the lives of 20,000 mutants. If this battle is still not exciting, then he really doesn't know what to say. After we occupy Jiao City, we will leave 1,000 people to defend it. The people from the Hangzhou Merchants Association may send someone to inquire about the situation. However, seeing the tragic situation on the battlefield, I guess they won't have any bad intentions. Rest for a night and turn around to support Wanhei City tomorrow morning. Boom. The explosion in the distance suddenly interrupted Jiang Chen's words. Jiang Chen was stunned at first, then immediately put on his helmet and rushed out of the command tent. I have to start my internship today. When I think about running into the ravines to look at stones, I can't help but feel desperate. I heard that the conditions are extremely difficult, with 20 people in one dormitory and no place to take a shower. But don't worry. I will definitely not stop updating, but if there is a little fluctuation in the update time, I hope that all readers will forgive me. T.T. Chapter 453. Oh God. There was an explosion in the position. A Jag Tiger 2nd was lifted into the sky by the green flash. More than 20 soldiers hiding in the darkness suddenly emerged and launched a surprise attack on the NAC encirclement from the northwest corner. They advanced and fired. The raindrops exposed their outlines, but the outlines were still unclear in the darkness. Suddenly, 2 fist-sized subcrystals flew out of the shadows, emitting a creepy light in the darkness, and finally exploded behind the NAC infantry defense line. Jiang Chen's pupils shrank as he looked at the explosion in the distance. He knew very well what it was. The ability to detonate subcrystals. These people belonged to the Church of Dusk. The soldiers at the northwest corner of the defense line immediately responded and turned their guns to shoot at the unknown armed forces. It's optical invisibility. Hurry up and use EMP. A soldier ordered, then pulled off his headset, pulled out an EMP grenade and threw it. The soldiers nearby also pulled out EMP grenades and threw them in the direction of the fire. Layers of electric current sound spread out, immediately sweeping out the black-clad warriors in the triangular formation. The lightweight black mechanical exoskeleton looked like a one-piece coat, and the streamlined rifles in their hands flashed blow arcs. Judging from the low noise shooting sound, they were holding Gauss rifles powered by electromagnetic acceleration tracks. Judging from the workmanship alone, their equipment was definitely not produced in a wasteland factory with rough craftsmanship. There was a 90% chance that it came from before the war, and they were the elite of the Church of Dusk, the fanatics. The flying bullets collided with layers of ripples on the energy shield, and the fanatics who came out did not panic. They skillfully found shelters on the spot and scattered around the damaged Jagdtiger second, engaging in a firefight with the soldiers of the First Corps. EMP did not affect the Gauss rifle. Its shooting principle was to accelerate metal projectiles with high power current, and the instantaneous current caused by the electromagnetic pulse could be basically ignored. The penetration of the Gauss rifle posed a great threat to the soldiers wearing power armor. The T3 armor was not enough to defend against the Gauss rifle's strafing, but it was useless. In front of the Prowler, everything was nothing. Just as the fanatics desperately advanced towards the sports center, the roar of the engine suddenly came from the street behind them. The concrete wall collapsed under the impact of the armor, and the Prowler tanks that were originally attacking the door had circled behind them. The Type 52 particle cannon suddenly ejected, and the blue light group exploded in the center of the fanatics' formation. The scattered high-energy particles instantly disintegrated their energy shields. At the same time, the coaxial rapid-fire electromagnetic cannon began to pour ammunition. The dense 2-kilogram projectiles swept away, picking up a series of explosion dust in the heavy rain. The fanatics were suppressed in place and then crushed into pieces. Facing the Prowler tanks, they were good at stealth and had no power to fight back. The battle was decided, and the mutants and the Church of Twilight had no power to fight back. The mutant soldiers who were holding on to the sports center began to retreat, and the NAC soldiers who had advanced to the side of the building rushed in with rifles. But at this moment, green light flashed, and the sound of explosions filled the battlefield again. This time the explosion came from the entrance of the sports center, and the 8 soldiers who had rushed into the gymnasium were blown away across the street. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and looked at the rippling dust and saw a figure walking out of it. Dozens of red dots were densely locked on the man. There was no doubt that, if he dared to make any unusual movements, he would be turned into a sieve in the next second. The only thing that made Jiang Chen unsure was that the expression on his face was still that calm and relaxed. The raindrops wet his clothes, and the fluff on his collar was stuck into several clumps by the rain. His hands were in his pockets. "I want to see your leader." This was the first sentence he said after coming out. "Catch him." This was the answer given by Cheng Weiguo. 2 soldiers with rifles stepped forward, pointing their guns straight at his head, and approached him steadily. "Squat on the ground and raise your hands above your head." The man sighed when he saw this. "Is this how you worship the gods?" As soon as he finished speaking, something strange happened. As if being held by an invisible hand, the 2 broken steel bars on the ground turned over and swung up. Before the 2 soldiers could react, they were pierced through by the 2 steel bars that were rushing past. The incident happened suddenly, and everyone, including Jiang Chen, was stunned by this scene. "Kill him!" Cheng Weiguo shouted immediately. The soldiers, who had turned from shock to anger, immediately pulled the trigger. Bullets shot over, but like flies falling into a spider web, they froze in front of him. Looking at this scene, that was like the bullets stopping in the Matrix, Jiang Chen's face was slightly solemn. What the hell is this black technology? Seeing that the bullets were ineffective, Cheng Weiguo grinned and waved his hand violently. At his command, the Jag Tiger II rushed to the square in front of the sports center and aimed the Type 50 electromagnetic gun at the gate. Seeing this, the man just smiled and reached out to unbutton his coat. The bright gemstone was like a pendant, hanging on the inside of the coat, flashing a deep red light. Looking at this scene, Jiang Chen's pupils suddenly contracted. "Cease fire," Jiang Chen ordered immediately. Cheng Weiguo looked at Jiang Chen in surprise, not understanding why he ordered a ceasefire. Seeing that the Jag Tiger II did not fire, the man smiled with satisfaction and raised the ring in his hand that was flashing red light. "Jiang Chen, I know you are here. Come out. Don't you want to have a good chat with me?" Blood crystal is an isotope of subcrystal, but its energy reserve is tens of thousands times greater. Only a small piece the size of a thumb contains energy comparable to that produced by the fusion of a kilogram of tritium nuclei. Jiang Chen heard from Linling that the energy of the three-dimensional decay of the crane particles is only the tip of the iceberg of its true energy. It is precisely because of this that when Sun Jiao assassinated him, she only had a few stone-sized subcrystals, but she produced the destructive power of explosives. This ability to detonate subcrystals releases the entire energy of the crane particles. Similarly, once he detonates the blood crystal, the energy released will be far more than the energy of 1 kilogram of tritium nuclear fusion estimated by people. In other words, each of the blood crystals hanging in his arms at this moment has the power comparable to a hydrogen bomb. Jiang Chen counted them, and including the ring on his finger, there were a total of 121. Cheng Weiguo saw Jiang Chen walking forward and quickly reached out to hold him. "Marshal, you can't." Jiang Chen waved his hand, indicating that Cheng Weiguo didn't need to care about him, and then insisted on walking forward. Seeing Jiang Chen walking towards him, the man smiled happily. "As expected, you are quite knowledgeable." Cheng Weiguo watched Jiang Chen walk up to the man without any precautions. He swallowed hard and gestured to the hunter beside him. The hunter understood and raised his sniper rifle to be on guard. After taking a look at the body, pierced by steel bars at his feet, Jiang Chen looked at the man. "Introduce yourself." Seeing that Jiang Chen showed no fear, the man's smile grew wider. "Bo Yu, you of the universe, you can also call me the leader, or God." Chapter 454. 121 Hydrogen bombs. The heavy rain fell, and the raindrops, illuminated by the flares, shone like blood drops. The two stood face to face at the entrance of the sports center, staring at each other in silence. "God." Jiang Chen couldn't help but sneer. How stupid must one be to call himself a god? Facing Jiang Chen's sneer, Bo smiled nonchalantly. "I have to admire you for forcing me to use my last trump card. I'm curious, where did you get those rockets from?" "Unguided cluster rockets. As far as I know, no country would use such boring things before the war. What can be done with a cluster bomb naturally does not require a large group of rockets to pour explosives. This type of cluster rocket completely withdrew from the stage of history as early as the middle of the 21st century, so it is no wonder that Boy was unaware of it. I found inspiration from history. Being backward does not mean being useless." Jiang Chen grinned and gave a very vague answer. "Really?" Boy spread his hands. "How did you do it?" Jiang Chen asked, glancing at the steel bars and bullets on the ground. As if he had heard some interesting question, Boy suddenly laughed. The arrogant laughter echoed in the gymnasium, so clear and weird. "It seems that you know nothing about power." Jiang Chen did not respond, but looked at the smile on his face coldly. As if he had laughed enough, he stopped laughing. "Forget it. Since you answered a question for me, I will tell you. Have you heard of the hidden gene code?" "Hidden gene code? I have heard of it a little bit," Jiang Chen said lightly. "More than just a little bit of it. He has unlocked it to the 2nd level. Have you tried to unlock it to the 3rd level?" Boy asked mysteriously. "The 3rd level?" Jiang Chen asked softly. "That's right. The so-called hidden gene code is the ability that human ancestors once possessed during evolution, but eventually lost. The reason for losing this ability is not because it is weak or cumbersome, but because it is too powerful, so it is eventually balanced by nature." Boy stared at Jiang Chen's eyes, smiled and raised one hand. "For example." The bullet floated up from the ground, condensed in his palm, and slowly flowed into a small vortex. Looking at this supernatural scene, Jiang Chen frowned slightly. Telekinesis. No, no, no. That statement is too unprofessional. Holding the bullet in his hand, Boyu stretched out a finger and waved it. It's just another use of clean particles through the directional disturbance of three-dimensional physical phenomena. So your ability is to sense clean particles? Jiang Chen asked thoughtfully. Clean particles interfere with three-dimensional physical phenomena. Speaking of which, he remembered that the clean particle wave emitted by Ting Ting could destroy electronic equipment. Is it one of the interference methods? Interference with the laws of electron motion. While thinking about this, Jiang Chen suddenly noticed the flashing ring on his hand. Wait, if his ability is to manipulate clean particles, then the source of his ability, induction, interference and control. Boyu smiled. So as you can see, I can stop momentum for no reason, and I can give non-existent magnetic fields out of thin air. I'm the god of this world after unlocking the third level. And the power of technology can also enable me to give abilities to my believers. Originally, I was just planning to use the 121 hydrogen bombs on my body to threaten you to take me away from here, but now I have changed my mind. I admire your ability very much. If you join me, my plan will undoubtedly be much easier. How about it? Do you want to be this powerful? Want to get rid of this barren wasteland? Join us, I will give you a ticket, and I will also give you this ability to interfere with nature. Speaking with bewitching words, Boyu stared at Jiang Chen's eyes. Join? The so-called plan to go to the new world, to open up wasteland was not attractive to Jiang Chen, who could freely travel between the present world and the end of the world. However, Jiang Chen did not reject him immediately, but fell into deep thought. 121 hydrogen bombs. Even if it explodes in Jia City, Susao and Hangzhou province can be easily wiped off the map. You have no choice. I have activated the 121 blood crystals on my body. Once they lose the restraint of my ability, they will explode like grenades. Boyu continued to speak. When he saw Jiang Chen did not speak, Jiang Chen looked up at the sky. The 15 shaky flares seemed to be close to their limit. What are you looking at? Boyu frowned slightly. Jiang Chen's actions of ignoring him made him feel a little angry. Nothing. I agree to cooperate with you. Jiang Chen suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand. Boyu was stunned. The smile on Jiang Chen's face gave him a bad premonition. But feeling the heavy weight on his body, he felt relieved again. I'm not afraid of you playing any tricks. Anyway, I have a nuclear bomb on my body. Spreading out his hands, the bullet head slipped from his hands, and Boyu smiled and held Jiang Chen's hand. Welcome, comrade. Welcome, welcome. Shaking his hand enthusiastically, Jiang Chen's eyes suddenly flashed with a cunning conspiracy, and his index finger casually rested on his sleeve. The flares in the air gradually dimmed, and the shadows cast from the wall slowly hid the figures of the two. At this time, Boyu's heart suddenly tightened, and an inexplicable sense of crisis crept into his heart. However, before he could react, he felt his body lighten, and his coat and ring disappeared out of thin air. How is it possible? Boyu retreated in horror, while pulling out the pistol from his waist. Without the ring, he could no longer use that ability. Although his brain was in chaos, because of the supernatural phenomenon in front of him, he knew one thing clearly at this moment, that is, if he wanted to survive, he had to control the man in front of him. However, before he could raise his pistol, his arm was cut off by a flying blade of light. The piercing scream echoed in the empty hall. Boyu staggered and fell to the ground, holding his broken right arm, struggling with convulsions. Jiang Chen hid the laser sword in his hand, told Cheng Weiguo not to come in through the headset, and then walked towards him holding the hilt of the sword. The self-proclaimed god's facial muscles were completely twisted together. White foam overflowed from the corners of his mouth, and he no longer had the previous leisure. It seems that I have killed the god. Jiang Chen kicked the pistol on the ground and leaned over the leader of the Dusk Church lying on the ground. In this way, it can be regarded as revenge for Sun Jiao and Sun Jiao. The high temperature of the laser blade scorched his wound, so his broken arm did not bleed massively. Thanks to this, Jiang Chen could ask him some things. Impossible, my blood crystal, you hid it. Haha, it doesn't matter. Lose my restraint, and the activated ones will blow all of you into pieces. Bury me. Shrinking back, Boyu stared at Jiang Chen's eyes and spoke intermittently. Can you speak now? Unfortunately, they have disappeared from this world. Jiang Chen curled his lips. Boyu's eyes widened, his face full of incredible shock. This, impossible. Do you want to know why? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. Boyu, curled up on the ground, swallowed his saliva and nodded. Then tell me about Shelter 071 first. Or, why did you choose Sun Jiao? Jiang Chen asked with a smile. This is what Jiang Chen has been confused about. If Sun Jiao's ability was given by him, not her own talent, then why did he choose her and implant a chip behind her head to block her memory and train her to be a person? Hearing the name Sun Jiao, Boyu was obviously stunned for a moment and then reacted. Gigi, are you talking about the assassin I sent to kill you? What a useless thing. Stop talking nonsense. Jiang Chen said coldly, and the lightsaber pointed at his toes. The piercing pain almost made Boyu faint. He has always enjoyed the worship of believers, but he has never suffered such a punishment. Beads of sweat slid down his forehead, and he screamed while howling. I say. Jiang Chen stopped what he was doing, and looked at him coldly. Shelter 071, there is a living specimen of Pac. Covering his broken arm, Boyu's muscles were tense, and he spoke quickly. Specimen? Jiang Chen frowned. A hint of hesitation flashed in his eyes, but seeing the lightsaber swinging in Jiang Chen's hand, Boyu still gritted his teeth and continued. Among the 500 survivors, there is a code for eternal life. Eternal life. Jiang Chen's heart was shocked, but there was no expression on his face, and he asked casually, oh, did you find it? No one in a high position can escape the temptation of eternal life, not even Jiang Chen. Seeing this, Boyu's distorted expression forced a smile. Guess. Stop talking nonsense. Jiang Chen said lightly, pointing the lightsaber at his nose. Based on the value of the information you provided, I can consider letting you go. Then you'd better kill me. Boyu grinned. Do you think I will fall for your trick? You only have two choices now. Kill me and lose all clues. Let me go and get a clue to eternal life. The truth serum is ineffective for anyone who has been injected with genetic drugs. If he doesn't say it, Jiang Chen has no better way to pry the information he wants from his brain. Catch him first, and then torture him? However, at this moment, a dizzy feeling surged into Jiang Chen's heart. The burning sensation climbed up his forehead along his wrist. He secretly thought that it was not good, and the lightsaber aimed at Boyu's nose slipped from his hand. Without any screams, the lightsaber pierced Boyu's head without any suspense. Restraining his shaky consciousness, Jiang Chen stretched out his hand to press the headset, said to Cheng Wei go help me, and then fell to the ground. The 121 blood crystals finally exploded. But not in this world, but in Jiang Chen's storage space. Chapter 455 Collapse. In the grey chaos, 121 red dots of light gradually enlarged and lit up the 30 cubic meters of subspace. The light became brighter and brighter, gradually engulfing all the objects in the space and spreading to the barrier of space. All energy was bounded in this small space by the invisible gravitational wall. The entire 30 cubic meters of subspace was like a cardboard box, imprisoning all the energy released by 121 hydrogen bombs of unknown equivalent. The terrifying light pressure pressed on the invisible wall, trying to break through the restraint and spread to a farther place. The 121 blood crystals were like a reservoir with a hole opened, pouring energy into the three-dimensional space frantically. As the crane particles continued to decay into the three-dimensional space, in this 30 cubic meters of small space, the outer edge light pressure even reached a terrifying stellar level. It was like a small sun with a volume of 30 cubic meters. The gravitational restraint was absolute. No matter how huge the energy was, it could not overflow from the subspace. Suddenly, the energy that filled the space suddenly stagnated, and it stopped squeezing the space barrier formed by gravity. Under the constraint of gravity, the density of photons exceeded a certain critical value. They no longer fled, but began to gather in the middle. In an instant, the light that filled the space shrank into a point. That point was darker than any substance in nature, because no light could escape from its constraint and escape from its own gravitational field. Is that a black hole? Jiang Chen stared blankly at the changes in the space, wanting to reach out and touch the black point, but found that he had no hands at all. After fainting, his consciousness appeared in this space. In the past, although he could store and retrieve things from this subspace he called the storage space, and could also sense any material he placed in the space, he had never been able to take a good look at its appearance. However, now, he can put his consciousness into this space and observe everything that happened here. It turns out that this space is not square, nor round, but well, what exactly is it? Jiang Chen frowned, thinking about how to describe this place. Without any shape, it was purely relying on invisible gravity to bind all matter within a range of 30 cubic meters. This space is invisible, and the only limitation is the volume of matter that exists in this space. Shaking his head, Jiang Chen gave up naming this space and turned to observe the black spot. At this moment, the 121 blood crystals had completely disappeared, and all the clean particles had decayed into energy that could be observed in 3 dimensions. Jiang Chen quietly observed the black spot, patiently waiting for its changes. However, a long time passed, and it did not change at all. However, despite this, Jiang Chen could still feel that the volume of the black spot was still shrinking. It was just because its own volume had been compressed to a very small size by its own gravity, so its changes could not be clearly observed. If a physicist stood here at this moment, he would definitely fall into shock or even madness, and stare at this miracle intently. Collapse. It was actually a collapse. Any slight change that occurred here could cause an earthquake in the entire physics community. However, Jiang Chen standing here was just an engineering student who had almost forgotten his professional knowledge. He had no professional knowledge, and no desire for scientific knowledge. He just thought that he couldn't get out for the time being, so he observed the black spot to kill time. But it seemed that he had already done a lot of such wasteful things. Suddenly, there was a trace of abnormality in his storage space. The black spot that couldn't escape even at the speed of light began to tear and distort the space with its gravity. At the same time, Jiang Chen was surprised to find that the gravitational wall that restricted the volume of the subspace actually showed a sign of loosening. He was happy at first, but then his mood fell to the bottom. Because the gravitational wall was indeed loose. But unfortunately, it didn't loosen outwards, but was pulled in by the black spot with infinite density and infinitely small volume. Jiang Chen watched all this with a smile. What the hell is my storage space going to be pulled into a point? Jiang Chen wanted to stop all this from happening, but found that he couldn't interfere with its changes at all. Throw the black spot out? Jiang Chen rejected this idea in a flash with a cold sweat. Creating a black hole on the earth would not be a matter of the end of the world, but the end of the world. Just as he was distressed that his storage space had disappeared, the black spot suddenly exploded. The Big Bang happened. If a physicist was standing here at this moment, he would definitely faint, because he could not express his excitement in words. At this moment, Jiang Chen witnessed the birth of a universe. When compressed to the limit, the moving photons become absolutely static. Photons that do not have static mass lose all their mass the moment they stop moving. The black spot lost its mass, and the originally infinite density returned to zero in an instant, and the gravity that distorted the space also disappeared. The big explosion caused by annihilation completed the transformation from subspace to space. Jiang Chen stared at everything that happened in front of him in amazement, and then his consciousness gradually returned to his body. Opening his eyes, Jiang Chen found himself lying in a bumpy carriage. Cheng Weiguo was sitting next to him. "Marshall, you're awake." Seeing Jiang Chen wake up, Cheng Weiguo's face lit up, and he immediately leaned over. "How long have I slept?" "2 days. Where is this?" Jiang Chen squinted his eyes and looked around the room. "This is Shengxiang town. I followed your instructions and left 1,000 soldiers in Jia City to garrison, and then took the remaining people and armored forces back to Wanghe City immediately." Cheng Weiguo answered immediately. "War, victory, victory." Cheng Weiguo nodded excitedly. "It's already won, but there's no sense of reality." Recalling the last duel and everything that happened in the storage space, Jiang Chen thought helplessly. "Marshall, you'd better not do such dangerous things in the future." If you have any accident, your marshal's wife will blow our heads off, Chen Weiguo said with a bitter face. Jiang Chen smiled and didn't answer. Are you kidding? If I hadn't thrown 121 blood crystals into the storage space, not to mention you, even the entire Suzhou and Hangzhou province would have been wiped off the map. It was a real wipe. Of course, he wouldn't explain this to them. Only a few people in the entire NAC knew that the Church of Twilight could detonate subcrystals. As for the ability of his storage space, only Sun Jiao, Yao, and Lin Ling knew about it. He didn't even have time to tell Sun Jiao or Rao. Where are the 8 rocket launchers? Jiang Chen asked. The launchers have been deployed in Shengxiang town, and the remaining 20,000 napalm rockets are still being transported. Marshal, are you hungry? How about I go get you something to eat? Seeing Chen Weiguo's concerned look, Jiang Chen smiled and shook his head. No need. You go out first. I want to lie down for a while. By the way, have you reported my coma? I'm about to report it. Chen Weiguo smiled bitterly. Don't report it, Jiang Chen said immediately. Okay. Hearing the marshal say this, Chen Weiguo also breathed a sigh of relief. When leaving the ward, he closed the door for Jiang Chen. Seeing that Chen Weiguo had left, Jiang Chen rested for a while, raised his EP, and began to check his physical condition. His body functions were normal, without any physical damage. Then, Jiang Chen instantly disappeared from the bed, and then returned to the bed the next second. The ability to travel through time was normal. Relieved, Jiang Chen continued to sink his consciousness into the storage space. Seeing this, Jiang Chen's mouth twitched immediately. Damn, there is nothing in this storage space, including a power armor, several nuclear grenades, a hand EPK-2000 rifle and ammunition, 2 spare chemical protective suits, a few packs of instant noodles and snacks and other unnecessary sundries. Everything was destroyed in the big explosion. Jiang Chen sighed. Weapons and the like are okay, and he doesn't feel bad about food. That is, the bank card, ID card, passport, driver's license and other documents must be reissued, the car keys and other things must be replaced, and the mobile phone must be replaced. Throwing everything into the storage space, it's so cool now, the storage space has been completely recycled. Forget it, the old one doesn't go away, and the new one doesn't come. Let Yao help make a next generation mobile phone to use. With a sigh, Jiang Chen muttered to himself, staring at the ceiling in a daze. In addition to the enhanced sensitivity of consciousness to the storage space, he can now not only immerse his consciousness in the dark space, but also use consciousness to interfere with the matter in the space. For example, he casually threw the vase on the bedside table into the storage space, and he could control a pair of non-existent hands to move the position of the vase. With a slight movement in his heart, the vase reappeared in his hand. Turn on the radio life signal detection device mounted on the EP and lower the frequency recognition range. Looking at the screen of the EP, Jiang Chen was silent for a while, and then sighed. Sure enough, it still can't carry living things. Jiang Chen shook his head, and continued to sink his consciousness into the space, ready to feel this wonderful sense of suspension more. But at this moment, he suddenly fell into a daze. When did my storage space become so big? Thanks to book friend Rosim for being the leader. This book has a second leader. Thank you all for your support. I will continue to work hard as always. According to convention, the leader must add at least 3 more chapters. However, since Chengxing is now interning in a mountainous area, I have to work every day and I really can't spare the time to burst out. However, I will make up for the updates I owe when I return to school on April 1st. I guarantee it with my integrity. Chapter 456. The Western Front comes to an end. The Big Bang was recreated in space by accident. The original 30 cubic meters of space expanded 10 times, and now it is 300 cubic meters. The subspace that originally had no entity and only bound matter by gravity has turned into a real universe. And this universe is still expanding outward at a weak speed. The 300 cubic meter sphere has a radius of 4.146 meters. There is a tangible inside the sphere, but there is no tangible outside the sphere. Because it is too small compared to the real universe, Jiang Chen calls it a small universe. He believes that, as long as this small universe is given enough time, one day it will become an existence comparable to the real universe. Although this time unit may take billions of years. But what really concerns Jiang Chen is not the slowly expanding volume. He has a vague premonition that the transformation of this storage space from invisible to tangible may be the key to his leading people through. After resting until dawn, Jiang Chen got up and moved around in the room. Seeing that he was not feeling uncomfortable, he walked out of the door. When the guard at the door saw Jiang Chen, he immediately saluted him and took him to the temporary headquarters of the First Corps at his request. After greeting Chen Weiguo, Jiang Chen asked him about the situation of the First Corps without much greeting. First of all, the spoils of war. The 300,000 tons of C-type seized from the mutants during the entire battle far exceeded the expectation of 200,000 tons. I believe that the investors in the 6th block will be cheering for this. At the same time, the First Corps also seized 50,000 tons of A-type steel from the mutants' newly built warehouse in Jiao City, as well as a large number of heavy weapons such as Type 99 anti-tank guns and Screamer mortars and their ammunition. The seized A-type steel will be pulled into the factory of the Fishbone base to build the Hunting Tiger second tank. These conventional weapons were left in Jiao City and kept by the 1,000 soldiers of the First Corps. On the other hand, the mechanical exoskeleton and Gauss rifle fragments used by the fanatics were also collected by Chen Weiguo's men. After the alien tide is over, these fragments will be taken to shelter number 27 for technological restoration. Optical invisibility, Gauss rifle. Jiang Chen has long coveted these black technology weapons, but he has never gotten the design drawings of these things. Although he doesn't know where the Church of Twilight got these black technologies, these things belong to him anyway. The results of the war are also very gratifying. Boyu is dead, the Church of Twilight is doomed, and this big trouble has finally been eradicated. The only regret is that the secret of shelter number 71 was taken to the grave with Boyu's death. If you want to find out, I'm afraid you can only spend some time looking for the remnants of the Church of Twilight, or personally investigate the abandoned ruins of shelter number 71. In the underground nuclear bunker of the sports center, NAC soldiers killed Troy, the leader of the mutants in Area 7, and his remaining troops. The mutants entrenched in Site 7 were completely wiped out. After capturing Site 7 in Jiao City, Chen Weiguo ordered the bombing of all mutant culture tanks and the destruction of the Fed formula. Thus, the foreign threats that had troubled Wanghai City for many years were eradicated, and the western trade route was reopened. I believe that by next spring at the latest, merchants will come and go in an endless stream in this precious land of Wanghai City, bringing glittering subcrystals and exquisite goods. On the other hand, there were only more than 10,000 survivors of the Rebel Alliance rescued from Jiao City, and they all expressed their desire to join the NAC, even though at least 50,000 of their compatriots died in the coverage of NAC's rockets. It is the nature of the humble to worship the strong. If they were protected by such a powerful force, they would not have to endure such suffering. So they begged Chen Weiguo to take them in, even as slaves of the NAC. Chen Weiguo did not agree to them immediately, but only said that he would convey their request to the Supreme Marshal, and then found Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen considered for 2 seconds before accepting them. He then selected a few smart people from the First Corps to temporarily manage these 10,000 people, and led them to rebuild their homes in Jiao City. Jiao City is the gateway to Wanghai City from the west. Jiang Chen was a little hesitant about whether to use it as a military zone or an economic zone. However, after discussing it with Chunan on the phone, Jiang Chen finally made a choice. Jiao City will be set as an economic zone, and site number 7 will be completely abandoned. Merchants who used to come here will be able to make simple supplies. On the other hand, Jiang Chen also ordered the temporary executive officer who temporarily managed Jiao City to investigate the damage to the maglev track. If the maglev tracks of Jiao City Railway Station and Wanghai City Railway Station can be repaired, the time from Jiao City to Wanghai City will undoubtedly be greatly shortened. Merchants from Hangzhou City to Su City and Changsha will undoubtedly be more inclined to choose the Wanghai City route and give up the wilderness west of Dianshan Lake. If you want to get rich, you must first build roads. This has been the reason since ancient times. However, it is not so easy to repair the maglev track. After all, even highways were targeted by bombs during wartime, so there was no reason why the maglev track would be spared. At the end of the call, Jiang Chen briefly asked Chunan about the situation in the 6th block, and only then did he know that the area was in a precarious situation. At present, a large number of dangerous species have appeared in the eastern part of the 6th block, and the long defense line has brought great pressure to the defenders. Just yesterday, the north gate of the 6th block even encountered a wave of death claws. It was simply a disaster. With the power of the death claws, it is not difficult to jump over the wall. As for the survivors, only anti-tank guns or individual rockets can cause damage to them. If we can't get support within 4 days, we may have to abandon the outer city wall and retreat to the inner high wall. The alien species appearing in the suburbs are getting stronger and stronger, and the fuel stocks in the 6th block are running out, Chunan said with difficulty. Don't worry, everything can be over by this afternoon at the latest. Jiang Chen smiled on the phone. Chunan frowned in confusion. He didn't know about the big commotion Jiang Chen made on the eastern front. However, hearing Jiang Chen's confident tone, he still expressed his doubts and said that he would do his best to hold on and wait for the arrival of reinforcement. As for the source of Jiang Chen's confidence, it was also very simple. Are you kidding? 20,000 rounds of solidified gas, oil, bullets to clean the ground. No matter if you are zombies or death claws, as long as you are carbon-based creatures, die. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen looked at Cheng Weiguo who had been waiting by his side. How long will it take for 20,000 rounds of ammunition to be in place? It has been in place an hour ago, waiting for your order. Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction. Where are the armored troops? They have finished resting. Cheng Weiguo answered with his back straightened. It's time to finish. Looking at the holographic map floating on the table, Jiang Chen raised his lips. Let everyone get ready, take the weapons, and go home. Please give me some votes. Please. Chapter 457 Barrage Coverage. Outside the east gate of the 6th block, there were a lot of broken limbs on the ground, and the black blood and corpse oil formed a hard crust. The soldier standing on the wall swallowed his saliva and slightly moved his finger on the trigger. The miserable scene and stench under the wall made his scalp numb. The sentry machine gun on the wall moved the turret at a constant speed, and the infrared rays scanned the wall, searching for suspicious targets. On the higher turrets, there were Type 50 electromagnetic guns or Type 99 tank guns. The gunners in charge of them were leaning on the guns to take a nap. Many of them had not closed their eyes for almost 24 hours. We're almost there. Standing in the command tower, Zhao Gang stared at the red dot on the holographic screen with a frown. The drone took a picture of the distribution of alien species outside Wanghei City. The red frame marked with the word Karbug made him feel strongly uneasy. As a former King Pu survivor who had survived in the wasteland for nearly a dozen years, he knew very well what this Karbug was. That year, he followed his father to hide in the 6th block and survived the alien tide by chance. Has the reinforcement of the 1st Corps not arrived yet? Standing next to him, Chunan also frowned. They have already set out from Shengxiang town, but judging from the speed of advancement, their support may not arrive until tomorrow. What a disaster. Chunan looked at the stagnant blue dot on the map and couldn't help saying, when he was a pilot in Liuding town before, he had never encountered such a thing as an alien tide. The scope of the alien tide seems to be limited to land, and the aliens in the ocean have not shown any abnormality. Therefore, the Bohai, which is floating on the edge of the port, only needs to retract the folding suspension bridge connected to the land, and the zombies and aliens can only sigh in despair. Occasionally, there are aliens that can fly to the deck, but they are often solved by power armor holding guns or flamethrowers, and there is no need for him, a pilot, to take action. This is a disaster. Zhao Gang looked outside the wall. The nth round of alien offensive has begun. It's a bug. With a loud roar, all the dozing gunners woke up and looked outside the wall. On the soft and powerful insect-like body, there was a shell as solid as a rock. The smooth and flat shell, like a mirror, supported its head and fragile body. It crawled slowly, leaving a pale trail like a mouthful of sputum on the concrete floor. It was like a large snail protecting its face, but it was not afraid of salt. It could easily climb over the high wall and then devour the living things it crushed by crushing them. Infantry squad machine gun suppression. Gunners are ready to shoot and move quickly. Da da da. Holding the trigger tightly, the soldier who was half kneeling behind the wall bunker, together with his comrades, vented his firepower on the bug. The firelight reflected on his face, showing the desperate expression vividly. Sparks flew, and the bullets only left shallow scratches on the carbug's shell. The dense calcium shell is made of graphene and hexagonal silicon mesh, which is close to the strength of B-type steel. The shell thickness of nearly 500mm is like a wall. The Type 99 anti-tank gun exploded suddenly, and an orange-yellow shell whizzed away. However, after hitting the snail shell, it was bounced off with a nearly 90-degree fold line. Damn. Ricochet. The gunner shouted and reloaded. At this time, the Type 50 electromagnetic gun on the other side emitted a faint blue arc, and the 5 kg mass bullet suddenly hit the shell, and the thick snail shell instantly exploded into pieces like a spider web. When encountering a creature like a carbug that is enough to make almost all armor-piercing bullets despair, only the deep penetration of the electromagnetic gun is enough to fight it. But the problem is that the number of Type 50 electromagnetic guns deployed in the 6th block is not large after all. Each wall can only be allocated 4 electromagnetic guns, and each one is responsible for a defense line of more than 1,000 meters. There were at least hundreds of bugs attacking the defense zone at the north gate. The bugs that lost their shells were not dead yet, twisting on the ground like earthworms, but soon died under the machine gun bullets. A soldier carrying a half-man-high rocket launcher entered the wall and knelt on one knee, aiming the sight at the nearest bug. Target locked, he pulled the trigger. Exhaust spray. The rocket suddenly flew 5 meters, then adjusted its direction and rushed into the sky. 5 seconds later, the rocket fell like a meteorite, piercing the shell of the locked bug by blasting the top. The snail shell suddenly stagnated, and the flames of the explosion rushed out from the gap at the top 3 or 4 meters high, and the bugs hidden inside were instantly blown into pieces. Well done. The soldier next to him gave him a thumbs up, and he grinned, removed the disposable launch tube, took another thick tube from the ammunition box, and installed it on the guidance sight. The Red Arrow 42 is one of the few weapons that can cause damage to the bugs, except for the Type 50 electromagnetic gun. With the supplement of individual anti-tank weapons, the situation began to turn around gradually, and the bugs that were about to touch the wall were wiped out. However, Jiao Gang, who was standing in the command tower, still had a frown on his face. There were 251 red dots on the screen, and the total number of Red Arrow 42 missiles was only 100. This kind of ammunition with a unit price of nearly 4,000 subcrystals was too expensive, and there was not much stock in the 6th block. At this time, the communicator in Jiao Gang's pocket suddenly rang. Hello. Seeing that it was Jiang Chen calling, he immediately answered the phone. Get ready to watch the fireworks. Jiang Chen smiled. Jiao Gang was stunned, and he didn't react for a while. However, in less than half a minute, the communicator fell from his hand to the ground. Looking out the window, his pupils gradually dilated. His Adam's apple slid up and down slightly, but he couldn't say a word to describe his shock at the moment. Looking to the side, he saw that Junan's expression was no different from his. On the wall, a soldier heard a humming sound coming from afar and couldn't help but raise his head. Look. What is that? One person screamed and pointed to the southwest sky. Rows of black dots, trailing long narrow lines of smoke. Anti-aircraft machine guns were pointed at them nervously, but when they saw that they were not aliens, everyone opened their eyes in disbelief. Rockets rained down like raindrops, saturating the area behind the 6th block. In an instant, a red column of fire rolled up and engulfed the battlefield within a kilometer in depth. The more than 200 carbugs and the zombie aliens that were rushing to the 6th block were all engulfed in it. The armor of the carbugs can easily deflect rockets and withstand the impact of explosions, but it cannot withstand the high temperature of thousands of degrees Celsius. Their outer shells are still intact, but the soft body under the shell has been steamed and then roasted into charcoal. The rolling flames closed, and the black smoke covered the sky. Under the barrage of bullets, no alien survived. Feeling the scorching and high temperature floating to the tip of their noses, the soldiers on the wall stared blankly at the scene in front of them, and they didn't realize that the rifles in their hands had slipped. After a long while, Someone finally spoke the first sentence. "It's gone." "Obviously. What is this?" A soldier's voice trembled. "Hell. Probably. It should be one of ours. No doubt." Feeling the burning heat blowing to the tip of his nose, the comrade beside him turned off the safety and slowly lowered the rifle in his hand. If such a thing exists, the rifle is meaningless. A dead claw staggered out of the flames and rolled on the ground in pain. The mixed gasoline stuck to it was like lard paste, sticky and resistant to burning. Rolling would not put out the fire, but would make it burn more and more. Gradually, it stopped struggling and just scratched the cement on the ground miserably. No one paid attention to this dead claw because everyone knew it would not live for a few minutes. In the distance, rockets continued to slide across the sky. Standing in the command post, Zhao Gang and Chunan looked up and stared at the fire in the distance. The sky was gradually dyed with red clouds. However, at this moment he could not tell whether it was the setting sun or the barrage of comments that lit up the sunset. Chapter 458 Watching Fireworks Together. Liuding Town. On the deck of the Bohai aircraft carrier, zombies with drooping shoulders wandered by the port, staring at the aircraft carrier dozens of meters away with white eyes. The deck of the aircraft carrier was crowded with survivors, most of whom were survivors from the east side of Wanhai City. When the alien species tide came, these weak survivors would often choose to join the stronger survivor groups, or simply migrate outside the city. Liuding Town floating on the sea was undoubtedly their first choice. The zombies and alien species active on land were completely powerless against this aircraft carrier city. The official attitude of Liuding Town was also very tolerant towards these survivors. Not only did they designate a residential area for them, but they also arranged drinking water and nutritional mixtures. Of course, these were not free, including the summons to board the ship. All the protection they enjoyed had to be paid by Yajing. A middle-aged man wearing a general's cap and a straight military uniform stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the scene in the distance. Rockets? Yes, and they should be solidified gas, oil, and bullets. The soldier standing next to him, holding a rifle, answered. The general pursed his lips and said nothing, just looking at the rising flames in the distance. After a long while, he cursed softly. Damn, where did they get so much gasoline? The strength of NAC is undoubtedly a threat to Liuding Town. If so many rockets fly towards Liuding Town, he asked himself, that even with electromagnetic and laser anti-missile systems, they would not have any chance of survival. Facing the technologically unsophisticated cluster rockets, electronic hacking and electromagnetic pulses are completely ineffective, and laser anti-missiles can only destroy 3 or 4 rockets at most. Facing hundreds of rounds of coverage, it is simply a joke. The soldier standing next to him did not speak, but took a deep breath slowly, and looked at the feast of incendiary bombs in the distance with a stiff expression on his face. It was almost dark, and the general suddenly asked, "How long have they been shooting?" "Since the evening." The soldier who came to his senses answered quickly. After a long silence, the general turned and left the deck. "These bastards will blow all the radioactive dust in the city center to our side. Prepare to raise the radiation protection sail." "Yes." The soldier stood at attention and saluted, watching the general leave. At the same time, the survivors not far away also sat beside the aircraft carrier, looking up at the flames in the distance. They whispered and discussed everything that happened on land. Was it done by NAC? It should be. That's the direction of the 6th block. Men, women, old people, children, almost everyone looked in the same direction. In their pupils, the red fireworks were reflected. That was the flame of order. They vaguely saw hope from it. At the same time, 36,000 kilometers above the ground in space, the fragments of satellites and space stations lay quietly in synchronous orbits, like a planetary ring made of steel. From these tragic fragments alone, we can see how tragic the war that broke out here was. In the space garbage belt, a shuttle-shaped aircraft slowly passed through, and in that aircraft, there was a figure lying. Oh, interesting. Through a layer of glass, he squinted his eyes and stared at the 1-meter fire on the earth. The flames that ignited from Wanhai City could be clearly seen by him, even though he was far away in the synchronous orbit. At this time, a warm electronic female voice sounded. has reached the synchronous orbit. Strong radiation source detected. Please prepare for radiation protection. Okay, but I may not need it. Lin Chaoan casually said to the program that could not answer and reached out and pressed on the ejection chamber. Please put on your spacesuit. Ignoring the electronics sound, Lin Chaoan reached out and typed the password next to the glass hatch. The side of the steel shell popped open and the emergency escape button rose. He slapped the red button with his hand. With the sound of air escaping, the hatch slowly opened. He was made of machinery and did not care about the vacuum environment, so he was naturally not afraid of the so-called radiation source. Reaching out and pulling the graphene cable to hook the metal ring around his waist, Lin Chaoan took the thruster and put it on his back, then gently jumped out into space. Looking at the silent space station suspended in space, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It was a scepter that could truly grant power. Standing next to the rocket launcher, Jiang Chen held a cigarette in his mouth while looking at the rocket that was launched. It was already dark, but the sky was still bright. The BM-21 rocket launcher continuously released its firepower, solidifying gasoline and oil. The bullets spread from the western suburbs of Wanghai City to the city center. The zombies and alien species that died under Stalin's organ were probably counted in the millions. With only flesh and blood, he didn't believe that anything else could survive this purgatory. It was quite interesting to say that he suddenly remembered the scene when he played a virtual online game with Sun Jiao last time. The girl seemed to have used the same trick and burned the entire novice village directly. Does it feel like firing magic? Jiang Chen picked up the cigarette with 2 fingers, grinned, and stretched his hand towards the night sky, where rockets were whistling. This rain of fireballs was indeed caused by his order. If that order is understood as a spell, then he is indeed a well-deserved magician. A magician who controls power. Chen Weiguo, who was standing aside, put his hands behind his back and pretended not to see anything in the face of the marshal's middle school move. What do you think is in the city center? Jiang Chen suddenly asked. Hearing this, Chen Weiguo was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. I don't know. I heard that even when there was a rumor that there were parts of the Rod of God in the city center, the survivors only reached Changning district at most, which is still 5 or 6 kilometers away from the city center. It is said that there is a ruin there, and there should be a large nuclear bomb crater in the middle. Only dangerous species or extremely mutated creatures will appear there. Has no one ever been curious about what is there? It shouldn't be difficult to send a drone to take a look. Jiang Chen put out his cigarette butt and threw it on the small pile of cigarette butts on the ground. To be honest, since he was injected with a gene drug, he basically didn't smoke much. But when the waiting was too boring, he would occasionally smoke a few cigarettes. Drones can't get in, or any electronic equipment can't get in. Chen Weiguo shook his head. EMP? Can EMP be used through the body of a living thing? This is too mysterious. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen frowned slightly and instinctively reached out to touch the cigarette box, but found that it was empty. He wanted to take it from the storage space, but suddenly remembered that his space was now empty. Seeing this, Chen Weiguo hurried forward and handed over his cigarette box. Jiang Chen smiled, stretched out his hand to pick up a cigarette and put it on his mouth. I'll return it to you when I get back. No, this was originally given to me by you, Marshal. Chen Weiguo said with a smile. With the cigarette, but in his mouth, Jiang Chen did not light it, but looked at the flickering fire in the distance thoughtfully. No, biological beings can emit EMP, or they can emit clean particles. Ting Ting, who is living in Lin Ling's body, can do it. Speaking of which, he has never figured it out. What exactly is a bug in the mouth of the artificial intelligence? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459 Return Home. When the last rocket was launched, it was already early morning. 20,000 solidified gasoline and oil bombs were emptied. The raging fire washed all the way from the suburbs to the city center, cutting off all life in the suppressed depth. When the density of zombies and alien species drops to the threshold, the alien species tide will stop. The zombies and alien species in the entire western half of the city must be enough to meet this condition. I wonder if this fire will stop tomorrow morning. Jiang Chen smiled and squinted at the flames and smoke in the distance. It should be. Cheng Weiguo answered. Wanghai City has suffered a direct nuclear attack, and the combustible materials of the buildings in the city have basically been burned. When the fuel of the incendiary bombs is exhausted, and the corpse oil and fat are burned dry, the fire should stop. The armored troops set out in the morning to clear the road from Shengxiang town to the Fishbone base. They should have arrived at the Fishbone base first. When we finish dealing with the things that need to be dealt with tomorrow, it's almost time to return to the base. Jiang Chen nodded and threw away the cigarette butt in his hand. Well, you go back first. Cheng Weiguo saluted and turned to leave. Jiang Chen squatted down and stared at the dry soil as if looking for something. At this time, an ant attracted his attention. It shook its antennae and searched for something on the ground. At this time, a finger stopped in front of it. The two antennae touched and it walked up. Then it disappeared from this world in an instant. The next second, its figure reappeared, but it was no longer moving. Still can't carry living things? Jiang Chen looked at the dead ant on his finger thoughtfully. Shaking his head, Jiang Chen stood up, patted the dust on his hands, turned around and walked towards the direction of Shengxiang town. After returning to the base, he saw Cheng Weiguo looking over with a helpless look on his face. After taking the phone, Jiang Chen clicked on the holographic screen and said to his ear, "Hello, Marshal, next time you want to do such a big move, can you let us know first?" As soon as the phone was connected, Chunan's bitter smile came. "Haha, isn't this a surprise for you?" Jiang Chen laughed unconsciously. "It's really a surprise," Chunan sighed and continued helplessly. "It would have been better if this weapon had been taken out earlier. Just a few shots in the city center. There's no need to burn half the city. Because I didn't have these things at the time, or they hadn't been shipped to Wanghai City yet." "Well, is that it?" Jiang Chen changed the subject. "No, it's mainly about the subcrystal." After a pause, Chunan continued, "According to the usual rules of the wasteland, whoever kills the alien will get the subcrystal. But we obviously don't have the ability to recycle the subcrystals in this half of the city in a short time. Then whoever picks it up will get it." Jiang Chen said indifferently. Chunan was obviously stunned when he heard Jiang Chen's words. "Any questions?" Seeing Chunan didn't speak, Jiang Chen continued. "No, it's just, the marshal is really willing to give it up." Chunan couldn't help but hold his forehead. Instead of letting outsiders who heard the news pick it up, it's better to let the survivors who fought side by side with us pick it up. The entire 6th block is mine. Do I need to care who puts the subcrystal in their pocket? That's it. From the 6th block to the outskirts of the city center, whoever picks up the subcrystal on the ground will own it." Jiang Chen waved his hand and said, "Okay, but I think it's better to impose a certain percentage of tax on these subcrystals. After all, these alien species were killed by you, and I don't think the survivors will object. If there is no tax, the emergence of a large number of subcrystals in the market is not necessarily a good thing," Chunan suggested. "Then do as you say. I will entrust you with this matter." Jiang Chen said. "Yes, sir." Chunan nodded. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen was about to throw the phone back to Cheng Weiguo, but he saw the phone ringing again. Looking at the words Marshal's Mansion on the holographic screen, Jiang Chen knew without thinking that it was Han Junhe calling. "Did you launch those rockets?" Han Junhe asked immediately after the call was connected. "Yes, it's a surprise, isn't it?" Jiang Chen smiled. "Why didn't you take it out earlier?" Almost the same question as Chunan. Jiang Chen sighed. "Okay, don't be greedy. Didn't I go out of the base to get these things? How is the situation at the base?" "Your rockets helped a lot. The area 500 meters outside the base was basically suppressed by gas, oil, and bullets. After a wave of alien species under the wall was cleared, the soldiers on the wall basically put on gas masks to watch the fireworks." Han Junhe reported briefly. "Really?" Jiang Chen smiled, and he was in a very happy mood at the moment. This feeling of crushing was really too pleasant. The next evening, in the western suburbs of Wanghai City, Broken limbs and arms can be seen everywhere on the wide road, and the corners and alleys exude a scorched stench. The broken walls are covered with creepy black, and I don't know how many heavy rains will take to wash it away. It was not until we got close to the fishbone base that this hellish scene became sparse. 4 trucks converted into bulldozers were working outside the wall, pushing the bodies of the subcrystals that had been dug out to the street 1,000 meters away, where they poured gasoline and burned them. Seeing the first core convoy appearing at the street in trance, the survivors working outside the wall cheered, whistled, and waved to the winners. Sitting on the turret of the Jag Tiger II, listening to the cheers of the crowd, Jiang Chen smiled and waved in response. The gate of the wall opened and let in the first core convoy. After arriving at the station, Jiang Chen did not go to the marshal's mansion immediately, but chose to go home. Sun Jiao and the others must be worried after being away for such a long time. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. Back at the villa, he opened his arms and hugged Sun Jiao, who rushed over. After the kiss, he then hugged Yao and bit her cute little face hard. Her white and tender skin was stained with red. Yao lowered her head shyly and whispered, "Do you want to take a bath together?" Thinking back to the last time she took a bath, her heart was beating wildly. However, Sun Jiao took over Jiang Chen without any hesitation and said to Yao with a smirk, "No, your brother Jiang Chen has to take a bath with me today." Yao pouted her lips aggrievedly and whispered, Then tomorrow. How about, let's just take a shower together, the 4 of us." Sun Jiao hugged Yao with a smile. "It's just right to teach Master Yao I'm not a child anymore. I'm older than all of you." Yao protested, her cherry lips pouting in dissatisfaction, almost touching the tip of her nose. Linling stood aside with her arms folded and interrupted without any hesitation. "Time spent in the freezer does not count towards age. This is a common practice in any country before the war." Yao's cheeks flushed, and she glanced to the side after being exposed. Only she and Linling came from before the war. "Linling, do you want to come too? 5 of us together." Sun Jiao invited with a smile, her eyes flashing like a little devil. Linling's face flushed, her mouth opened and closed for a long time, and she finally squeezed out half a sentence after a while. Who wants to come together?" Burying her blushing little head, Linling quickly escaped from the living room. Sun Jiao glared at her sister and said unhappily, "Jiao Rao." Sun Jiao stuck out her tongue and shrank behind Jiang Chen innocently, pretending to be wronged. "Brother-in-law, my sister bullied me." As she spoke, she also hugged Jiang Chen's arm and shook it in front of her chest. Although it must be very tempting to take a bath together, Jiang Chen's reason told him that if he really took a bath together, something might happen that he couldn't control. So Jiang Chen swallowed his saliva and pretended nothing happened. You 3 take a bath together. I'll wait for you to finish before I go." After saying that, Jiang Chen didn't wait for the 3 girls to react and shamelessly slipped away from the living room. Chapter 460. Take it back from the alien. Although Sun Jiao sometimes loves to bully people, she is still a very good person in essence. Perhaps it is because of the warmth of this family that she recalled the happy time before leaving the shelter, so she cherishes this family and the feelings of everyone in this family more than anyone else. Although she said that she wanted to occupy Jiang Chen when it was almost time to go to bed, she threw a sentence to Jiang Chen, Yao misses you very much, spend more time with her, and then slipped back to her room and did not open the door. Although he was very touched by Sun Jiao's thoughtfulness, facing the closed door, Jiang Chen's expression on his face was a bit funny. Yao is cute, but she can't eat it now. However, this is not the point. Some precocious little lolly always inadvertently do some hot actions, which almost made him lose control more than once. Forget it. Anyway, there are some things that need Yao's help. Thinking of this, Jiang Chen turned and walked towards Yao's room. Reaching out and knocking on the door, soon there was a soft sound behind the door. It's so late, what's the matter? He opened the door and saw Yao in a loose nightgown. Judging from her wet hair, she should have just taken a shower. A faint jasmine fragrance wafted in, refreshing her heart. "Well, I have something to ask Yao. Is that okay?" Yes, yes. Yao smiled sweetly and walked briskly to the door. Come in. Jiang Chen rubbed her head lovingly and walked into the room. He looked around the room. Since there was only one chair, Jiang Chen sat casually on the edge of the bed. Seeing this, Yao's cheeks flushed slightly, but she still walked forward and pretended to sit next to Jiang Chen, as if nothing had happened, and then secretly moved towards Jiang Chen. But, can you tell me what it is? Because of her nervousness, her voice was trembling slightly, so that she was a little out of tune. Seeing the little lolly who obviously misunderstood something and was fidgeting because of it, Jiang Chen couldn't help but laugh. After a pause, he spoke. It's about mobile phones. Can Yao help me design a mobile phone? Several question marks popped up in her head. The little girl was obviously stunned when she didn't hear the lines she imagined. Realizing that she had misunderstood, the blush climbed from the little girl's ears to her white collar. After a while, Yao recovered from the embarrassment and spoke in a low voice. Mobile phone. Is it the one that Jiang Chen showed me before? It was a long ago memory. When Jiang Chen first helped Yao design the game New Era, he got her a fake Samsung mobile phone for reference. Well, it's that type. If possible, can you help me design a similar, but more powerful mobile phone? Jiang Chen tried to make Yao understand what he meant. While gesturing with his hands, he explained what functions this mobile phone should have. Yao listened and nodded seriously. After hearing what Jiang Chen said, Yao patted her chest and promised. Leave it to me. Is 2 days okay? Yes. Please. Jiang Chen happily reached out and rubbed Yao's little head. Yao squinted her eyes comfortably, enjoying the touch on her head, and curled her lips sweetly. Seeing that it was getting late, Jiang Chen stood up and prepared to leave. At this time, he found a little hand weakly pulling on the corner of his clothes. What's the matter? Jiang Chen smiled and looked at Yao. Looking away, Yao said in a low voice a little embarrassedly, well, Yao, can I make a very willful request? Of course. Retracting her hand, Yao's cheeks flushed slightly, and her little fingers poked each other. Tonight, can we sleep together? Looking at that cute look, Jiang Chen felt like he was about to melt. Early morning. Looking at the sweet sleeping face in his arms, Jiang Chen was infected by the happy expression, smiled and leaned over, and gently kissed the white forehead. As if she felt the kiss, Yao moved her charming little mouth cutely, adjusted her sleeping position to be comfortable, and curled up like a small animal. Quietly getting out of bed and covering Yao with a blanket, Jiang Chen tiptoed out of the room and closed the door. After heating up 2 buns in the kitchen for breakfast, Jiang Chen left the villa. August is almost over, and now is the end of summer. Because of the radioactive dust, the mornings in the wasteland are usually very cold, but the temperature in the past 2 days may be a little abnormal. Until the morning of the next 2 days, a little spark could be seen in the direction of the city center. The facts were somewhat different from what Cheng Weiguo had estimated. Although there were no flammable materials to burn in the buildings of Wanghei City, the corpse oil of zombies and alien species provided a lot of fuel for the fire. Especially the meat mountain, which was full of high-density fat. After the fire of thousands of degrees evaporated the water in its body, the whole meat mountain was like an oil barrel, burning continuously. With the end of the alien tide and the return of the first core, the deserted base became lively again. The survivors returned to the surface, reunited with their relatives who had gone on the expedition, or quietly accepted the urn. There will be deaths in every war, and this cannot be changed in any way. And in the wasteland, death is a normal farewell. After arriving at the marshal's mansion, Jiang Chen was surprised to find that Han Junhe had arrived. At this moment, she was sitting at the desk belonging to the staff officer, processing the documents on the tablet. Did you sleep in the command room? Jiang Chen sat at his desk and looked at her helplessly. No. Well, to be precise, I didn't sleep. The workload yesterday was a bit heavy, including war damage, checking the war consumption materials with the logistics department, the pensions for the families of the fallen soldiers, the cleaning of the alien corpses and the recovery of the subcrystals. It was not until then that Jiang Chen noticed the deep bags under her eyes. No wonder I came back last night. She hadn't come to see me. It turned out that she was too busy to spare any time. Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh. It's okay. Han Junhua still had a blank expression on her face despite Jiang Chen's concern. If you're sleepy, you'd better go back and have a good sleep. Han Junhua perfunctorily hummed, stopped the work at hand, and looked at Jiang Chen. How many rockets do you have? Jiang Chen spread his hands and said, I've used them up. A full 40,000 rounds. But now the alien tide is over. Do you still need them? Although he could buy more, if he was short of them, frequent purchases and hoarding of such a weapon that violated the Geneva Convention would attract other people's attention. If possible, it would be better to wait for a while before buying it. Have you used them up? Han Junhua pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. It seems that there shouldn't be many such weapons. After all, fossil fuels such as gasoline are rare in the end of the world, not to mention the solidified gasoline. Oil bombs mixed with other chemical materials. Moreover, no one thought about such low-tech things in the beginning. However, what surprised everyone was that such low-tech things were unexpectedly efficient when facing alien species. After a short silence, she continued. How much more of that gasoline can you get? A lot. Any questions? Jiang Chen asked. The technical content of that solidified gasoline oil bomb should not be high. We are fully capable of producing rockets with stronger combustion effects and longer ranges. After a pause, Han Junhua looked at Jiang Chen and said seriously, in this way, it is not impossible to completely take back Wanghe City from the alien species. Chapter 461, More Powerful Cluster Rockets. Take back Wanghe City from the aliens? It must be said that this proposal is very tempting, and now it seems that NAC does have the ability to do so. Before the war, Wanghe City was not only an economic center of pan-Asian cooperation, but also an industrial base with high-tech industries as its core. If the entire Wanghe City can be under control, the speed of restoring pre-war technology from the ruins will undoubtedly be much faster. But this involves another problem. It is true that the aliens threaten the lives of the survivors, but the subcrystals they provide are also the cornerstone of the survivors' industrial development. The power station in the 6th district needs subcrystals, and fuel rods from cars to power armor also need subcrystals. The survivors who cannot obtain helium-4 from the moon to produce nuclear fusion batteries can only rely on subcrystals to make fuel rods of the same specifications to power pre-war equipment. For example, this type of fuel rod is now used in shelter number 27. The economic source of the 6th district depends on the hunting ground of Wanghe City. If the aliens in this steel and concrete forest are cleared, the hunting groups that rely on it for their livelihood will have to go further to obtain prey. However, Jiang Chen hesitated for only 2 minutes before making his choice. Recapture Wanghe City. The reason is simple. From hunting to farming, it is the only way for barbarism to become civilized. And this first step towards civilization is what NAC must take one day. Jiang Chen cannot always provide food here. Now the total population of NAC is only tens of thousands. What if it becomes hundreds of thousands in the future? What if it becomes millions? As for the problem of farming, if you are willing to spend the cost, there is actually a way to solve it. With the Eden project controlled by Linling, it is not impossible to build a closed biosphere in the suburbs of Wanghe City with the current productivity of NAC. As for the source of subcrystals, Jiang Chen actually has another idea in his mind, but if he wants to make it a reality, he needs to discuss it with the biologists in shelter number 27. After coming out of the community center, Jiang Chen went directly to the open space of the Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute, where he found Jiang Lin, who had just returned to the surface. It is interesting to say that this guy was playing with a wrench while circling around the BM-21 rocket launcher that Jiang Chen bought. This picture is like a modern rocket expert in the 21st century, tinkering around with a Shenhuo Feiya from the Ming dynasty. The soldiers on the side were looking at Jiang Lin nervously, afraid that he would dismantle this thing. He didn't care about scientific research or not. As a gunner responsible for launching rockets, he only knew that this thing killed half of the zombies and alien species in the city. Even though 2 days had passed, he still remembered the might of the humming sound. Do you see what's going on? Jiang Chen asked casually as he walked to his side. Nodding, Jiang Lin sighed. It's a very simple design, even primitive, whether it's the directional tube or the ignition system. The rockets that were launched did not add any guidance function, and they simply suppressed the target in a saturated coverage manner. Combined with the solidified gasoline, oil, and bombs that kill biological targets, there is indeed nothing more suitable than this thing to deal with zombies and alien species. But this thing must put a lot of pressure on logistics, right? Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously and did not answer his question. Are you kidding? Logistics is a problem for me, isn't it? There is indeed some pressure from logistics, but it is not unsolvable. I need you to help me design a similar cluster rocket launcher. It does not require any extraordinary guidance capabilities. It only needs to deliver more than 30 kilograms of combat components to dozens of kilometers away. It is more powerful than this antique, and its error is smaller than this antique. Can you do it? It's easy. You just need to modify the composition of the propellant and explosive. The problem lies in the materials. It is more difficult than anything else to find some oil in the wasteland. If the problem of raw materials can be solved, it is not difficult to produce such a luxurious weapon. Jiang Lin nodded, paused for a moment, and suddenly seemed to remember something and asked, then do we still need to build the Dolphin 10 ballistic missile? Of course we need it. I have other uses for nuclear bombs. Jiang Chen smiled. Jiang Lin scratched the back of his head and said helplessly, okay, since you insist. The rockets were arranged, and the next thing was the production of subcrystals. The alien tide was over, and Wang Xiaowu began to prepare to lead the second corps back to Camp 27. When Jiang Chen came out of the Institute of Aerospace Science and Technology, the convoy of the second corps had already lined up at the door, waiting for Wang Xiaowu to give the order to set off. Marshal. Wang Xiaowu saluted, after seeing Jiang Chen. No need to be polite. Are you ready to set off for Camp 27 now? Yes, our soldiers are ready. Wang Xiaowu said. Then give me a ride. I just happen to be going there too. Jiang Chen said. Okay. Wang Xiaowu nodded and immediately arranged a seat for Jiang Chen. About 10 minutes later, the convoy of the first corps finally completed the loading of supplies. As the gate of the base opened, the convoy began to slowly set off under the eyes of the survivors. There were charred corpses all over the road. Halfway through the convoy, Jiang Chen saw a mountain of flesh kneeling in the middle of the road. Its face was hideous, and its body was darker than that of a black man. Seeing that it blocked the convoy's way, the assault infantry vehicle that Jiang Chen was sitting in turned the machine gun on top and fired a few rounds lightly. The black coal-like meat mountain shattered into carbon blocks like honeycomb briquettes. After running over the coal slag, the convoy continued to move forward. The tragic scene along the way was indeed a bit nauseating, but for the determined people of the end of the world, it was just a common sight. Jiang Chen, who was sitting in the car, turned off the camera of the observation port and leaned back in his chair to close his eyes and rest. After about an hour's drive, the convoy finally arrived at the gate of Camp 27. When setting up the cleaning, the first corps did not miss this blind spot, so at this moment Camp 27 was completely dark, as if it was on fire. However, the supplies on the surface were basically moved underground, and it didn't matter if the remaining cement was burned casually. The gate was opened, and it was also a mess inside. The zombies who smelled the breath of the living would not let this place go, just because the second corps evacuated. The wall of more than 10 meters high was just a matter of thousands or hundreds of zombies. The corpses were piled up at the elevator entrance. The engineers jumped out of the car, put on gas masks, and worked with shovels for a long time, and finally cleaned up the charcoal ash piled at the elevator entrance. Damn, the people from the first corps are really ruthless. After getting off the car with Jiang Chen, Wang Xiaowu grinned and couldn't help but scold with a smile. They have to be ruthless, otherwise we will have to face a group of zombies that have climbed over the wall when we come back. Jiang Chen joked. That's true, but the engineers responsible for cleaning up the battlefield will have a headache. After saying this teasingly, Wang Xiaowu said goodbye to Jiang Chen and walked towards the truck behind the convoy. He now needs to immediately arrange the redeployment of fixed weapons. During the evacuation, The machine guns and electromagnetic cannons on the wall were pulled back to the fishbone base, and now they have been pulled back again, so of course they need to be reinstalled. At the same time, the camp is in such a mess now that it is obviously uninhabitable without cleaning it up. Without disturbing the work of the second corps, Jiang Chen walked straight towards the elevator of the shelter. Chapter 462 Alien Ranch Plan. The blue cold light flashed, and the elevator quickly descended. Soon, the red indicator light turned green, and the elevator stopped at the bottom 1000 meters below. Walking to the entrance of the shelter, Jiang Chen entered a few passwords on the door, then pulled out the data cable inside, and connected it directly to the EP. Genetic coding confirmed. Welcome back, Mr. Administrator. The shelter door is starting. Jiang Chen pulled out the data cable, and took 2 steps back. Soon, accompanied by a dull sound, the round door panel in front of him slowly moved sideways. Behind the door, Zulu, the executive officer of Camp 27, was already waiting there. Seeing Jiang Chen, she bowed with a smile, and welcomed Jiang Chen into the shelter. The alien tide is over. Arrange for people to return to the surface. So soon. Zulu was slightly surprised, but soon she returned to her smiling face. I'll go prepare it now. After saying goodbye to Zulu, Jiang Chen, with the 2 guards behind him, went straight to the Mechanical Research Institute in shelter number 27, and found Fang Weekson, who was busy drawing inside. Marshall, why are you here in person? Fang Weekson pushed away the drawing tablet in his hand, and greeted him with a smile. Well, there is something I want to show you, and then refer to your suggestions. After saying that, Jiang Chen gestured to the guard behind him. The guard nodded, put the 2 boxes in his hands on the table, and then retreated behind Jiang Chen. What is this? Fang Weekson frowned slightly, walked to the side of the box, and stretched out his hand to open it. After seeing the contents of the box, he was stunned for a moment, and then he was surprised. Mechanical exoskeleton. Gauss rifle? Mechanical exoskeleton with optical invisibility. Jiang Chen added. With a gleam of interest in his eyes, Fang Weekson reached out and rummaged through the fragments of the mechanical exoskeleton, then looked at the remains of the Gauss rifle. I hope you can restore the technology here. Can you do it? I can give it a try. It shouldn't be very difficult. Fang Weekson moved the 2 boxes to the side of a scanner. Scan its component structure, restore its lost parts, then use a quantum computer to simulate the design plan, and finally set the production process. Can it be mass produced? Jiang Chen asked. Not easy. Fang Weekson shook his head. Many things can only be recycled. For example, many parts of the Type 50 electromagnetic cannon in the base cannot be produced from scratch. If there are no recycled parts, we can only use 3D printing technology. 3D printing technology in the 22nd century is already quite mature, and there are no strength, precision and material limitations problems faced in the early 21st century. However, even so, 3D printing technology is still an expensive technology. For example, before the war, if a Ripper rifle was produced using a normal military production line, the price might be less than $10,000, but if it was made using 3D printing technology, the price would be at least $100,000, and the cost would not increase as the production volume increased. In the wasteland, due to the collapse of the industrial system, the survivors also used 3D printing technology for some parts that could not be processed. Just like a T3 power armor, at least 6,000 of the tens of thousands of parts were produced using 3D printing technology and then assembled by hand. This is why power armor is so expensive. If a Gauss rifle is produced using power armor, what do you think the cost is? Jiang Chen asked casually. The cost is mainly reflected in energy consumption and material loss. If it is completely produced by 3D printing technology, about 4,000 subcrystals for a rifle. The macro high energy capacitors and acceleration tracks inside are very demanding on materials. Fang Weekson gave an estimate. Wow, it's almost half of the T3 power armor. Jiang Chen was secretly amazed. Jiang Chen pondered for a moment and said, no matter what, you should restore the technology first. It doesn't matter if it's a little more expensive. In addition to being used in the aviation field, this Gauss rifle is also very effective when facing power armor. Its penetration and stability are not comparable to traditional rifles. Finally, after inspecting the tank production of the Mechanical Research Institute, Jiang Chen left here without disturbing the technicians in the institute. After leaving the Mechanical Research Institute, Jiang Chen went to the Biological Research Institute not far from here, and found those biological scientists who were not very popular in the shelter. When Jiang Chen walked into the institute, he saw that the scientists in white coats were pointing and talking around a culture tank, with a creepy excitement on their faces. As for why it was creepy, it was because they looked too much like Frankenstein in the comics. The study of life has always been a taboo in the scientific field, and its dangerous significance is no less than that of advanced artificial intelligence. However, in the wasteland, all scientific research laws are no longer applicable, so they have the ability to freely use their imagination. What are you looking at? Jiang Chen walked behind Wang Fangping and patted his shoulder. Wang Fangping was startled, but when he saw that it was Jiang Chen, he chuckled and said, "Marshal, the power generating seaweed you asked us to research is now complete." Completed. Jiang Chen was stunned at first, and then a look of joy appeared on his face. If Singapore wants to develop tourism, it must reduce the number of thermal power plants as much as possible. However, wind power and solar power generation are too inefficient, tidal power generation is too expensive, and nuclear power plants are out of the question. Therefore, Jiang Chen has always maintained a keen interest in the biomass power generation technology proposed by Wang Fangping. Not only is it environmentally friendly, but it is also cheap. The most abundant thing for countries in the Pacific Ocean is territorial waters. That's it. Wang Fangping stepped aside and made a gesture of invitation to the culture tank with a smile. In the yellow-green culture tank, a 3-meter-long seaweed was floating, and an ultraviolet lamp was hanging above the seaweed. The instrument next to it recorded the ratio of the amount of light and the power generation of the seaweed. It can be planted in waters 100 meters deep, with a maximum power of 1 kilowatt per square meter. The seaweed roots can be connected to metal wires to transmit electricity to the transformer on the shore, and then connected to the power grid. Wang Fangping pointed to the instrument and explained to Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen nodded with satisfaction and said, "Very good, you did a good job. All researchers involved will receive a reward of 1,000 crystals each." Upon hearing this, the 9 scientists in the institute all showed their delight. 1,000 crystals. You have to know that the salary of an acnite is only 50 crystals per month. This 1,000 crystals is undoubtedly a huge sum of money. Jiang Chen has never been stingy with his investment in scientific research. "Thank you, Marshal." Wang Fangping took the lead in expressing his gratitude. "You're welcome. I will not be stingy with rewards for anyone who has made contributions to NAC. By the way, I still need you to help me with something. I need you to help me breed a species that is less aggressive, easier to raise, and can quickly accumulate crystals." Jiang Chen put forward the main purpose of this trip. Now that the plan to clean up Wanghai City has been determined, the source of crystals must be found in another way. Let all hunting groups that rely on hunting change their careers to become mercenaries escorting caravans, and then change the source of crystals for the factory from hunting grounds to pastures, and establish the Garden of Eden ecological zone in the wasteland to produce food. Jiang Chen has already outlined this blueprint in his mind, and the first step to realize this plan is to find alien species suitable for captivity. Chapter 463 Water Drop Number 1. In order to facilitate the research of alien species by the people of the Institute of Biology, Jiang Chen instructed Zulu to set up an alien species shelter outside the wall of Camp 27 to house the captured experimental subjects, and facilitate the researchers to conduct genetic modification and breeding experiments. As for the capture of alien species, Jiang Chen handed it over to the Hunter Corps, with the cooperation of the Yunzi 51 and the Power Armor. Except for the difficulty of capturing alien species such as the Death Claw, it should not be difficult to capture other alien species. All experiments will be carried out outside the wall, and any escaped alien species will be directly killed by the machine guns and electromagnetic cannons on the wall, thus avoiding the occurrence of uncontrollable events. After explaining these things, Jiang Chen took the helicopter that arrived and returned to the Fishbone base. After returning to the base, Jiang Chen went to the warehouse by the way and threw a piece of equipment such as the T3 power armor, mechanical exoskeleton, and Tira rifle into the storage space. After the storage space was reset, there was only a laser sword that survived in the entire 300 cubic meters of space. The empty space really made people feel insecure. The march into the city center still needs to wait for a rest before it can proceed. Whether it is the cluster rocket that is being developed or the ammunition reserves in the base, they have to be replenished after such consumption. What's more, the subcrystals on the ground are waiting for people to pick up the corpses. So, after discussing with Han Junhe, Jiang Chen decided to launch the attack on the city center in mid-September. The reproduction cycle of organisms is not short. After this cleansing, even if it takes a month to rest, the number of alien species and zombies will not increase much. Seeing that there is no need for his help, Jiang Chen returned to the present world. The 20-day deadline is almost up, and now he can't wait to see the effect of the engineering robot. Solve the mining problem as soon as possible so that the future man mining company can start work as soon as possible and the virtual helmet can be put into production as soon as possible. After leaving the villa on Koro Island, Jiang Chen went to the mobile phone business hall on the way. While renewing the phone card, he also bought a new mobile phone and brought it with him. Although Yao is helping him DIY a new mobile phone, it is better to buy a mobile phone before that. After all, in this information age, it is as inconvenient to be without a mobile phone as to be a primitive man. After finishing these troublesome things, Jiang Chen drove the speedboat alone to Coconut Island. Just approaching the island, he found from a distance that the dock built on the shore had been completed. The main body of the building is a concrete wall, the top is covered by a metal shed, and the interior is a concave trough. In terms of scale, compared with those dry docks that are hundreds of meters long, this small dock can only be described as pocket-sized. However, although it is a bit pocket-sized, the structure of a dock is still very comprehensive, and if there is a need in the future, it can be widened again, right? After towing the speedboat ashore, Jiang Chen first walked to the material storage point. I saw that the two engineering robots were standing by the original material point on standby. After completing the construction task, they will automatically enter a dormant state. The steel bars, anti-corrosion cement, sand, and soil and other building materials needed for the construction have been almost consumed. The construction explosives used for ETH blasting have almost been exhausted, and 6 fuel rods used as batteries have also been consumed. After recycling the remaining building materials into the storage space, Jiang Chen walked towards the drone terminal placed in the jungle again. The honeycomb-shaped drone terminal was quietly there. Most of the drones were parked at the charging station and waiting for orders, and a few were cruising on the beach outside the jungle. After connecting the data cable directly to the app and checking the drone's reconnaissance records and confirming that no one was approaching the island, Jiang Chen unplugged the data cable and walked towards the dock. After opening the hatch, Jiang Chen saw the deep-sea submersible floating on the water. The length, width and height are 9 meters, 3 meters and 4 meters respectively. The hull is in the shape of a teardrop, and the outer shell is smooth and flat. The rear end is embedded with a T-shaped structure, and the water inlets at both ends continuously send water into the engine for supercharging, while the rear end water jet sprays high pressure water. Under the dual effects of the squeezing effect of the water pressure difference generated by the tilted outer shell at the tail and the water jet propulsion at the rear end, the submersible can surpass all submarines in the world in terms of speed. The front of the water drop is equipped with 2 pairs of mechanical arms, which can be used for deep-sea environment construction. It is an engineering module. The 8-meter long cylinder hanging at the bottom is a mining module. These things have been assembled by engineering robots and can be operated when powered on. The energy consumed by the submersible is electricity. The energy slot can be placed in a 100mm fusion battery. However, because there is no nuclear material, this water drop uses subcrystalline fuel rods. The submersible has a built-in molten salt electrolysis and reduction of carbon dioxide device. In theory, as long as there is sufficient electricity, the submersible can maintain normal oxygen supply. Jumping to the top of the water drop, Feeling the swaying of the soles of his feet, Jiang Chen squatted down carefully and then groped for a device similar to a camera on the top. Putting his eyes close to it, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice, "Start." Iris verification passed. "Welcome, Captain." A gap slowly opened up 1 meter in front of Jiang Chen, revealing a passage leading to the cabin. After taking a look and confirming that it was safe, Jiang Chen jumped in. Transparent? No, it should be some kind of imaging function. After entering the cabin, Jiang Chen looked around in surprise. It was hard to imagine that looking from the inside to the outside, it was actually as if it was transparent. Wide-angle imaging? Through multiple full-angle cameras hidden on the outside of the submersible, the outside images presented on the screen material in the cabin. Standing in this submersible is like being in a huge transparent bubble. After sighing at this spectacular scene, Jiang Chen passed through a narrow hatch and went directly into the cockpit and sat in the captain's seat at the front. It is said that most of the parts of this submersible are made of 3D printing, costing up to 500,000 subcrystals. But when Jiang Chen saw everything inside, he didn't think it was expensive at all. "Captain, please name the submersible." A polite electronic voice sounded, prompting Jiang Chen how to operate. Jiang Chen thought for a moment and then spoke. "Water drop number 1. Because it looks like a water drop, let's call it water drop." "Okay, water drop number 1 is at your service. Captain, please follow the operating instructions. There are no complicated buttons. With the help of primary artificial intelligence, even one person can handle the driving equipment that requires multiple people. There are 2 joysticks on the captain's seat. One controls the movement of the Z-axis, and the other controls the lifting and lowering of the Z-axis. Next to it are the water flow gate and a series of status instruments. In addition to manual operation, automatic operation can also be used. According to the map in the memory of the deep-sea submersible, the captain can issue navigation instructions through the command tablet or voice. After getting familiar with the operation, Jiang Chen immediately issued the order to go out to sea using the tablet. There was only a slight sound of water flowing behind him, and the entire submersible rushed out to the vast sea outside the dock. I have to say, this is much more interesting than a speedboat. Waves hit the outer shell of the water drop, but because the bulkhead is transparent, the waves look like they are hitting people. This feeling is just like surfing. Looking at the waves flying around, Jiang Chen gave the order again. "Dive, 100 meters. Got it." As soon as the electronic sound sounded, the water drop suddenly sank down. As if immersing the head in water, the sound of the waves around disappeared instantly. Jiang Chen paid attention to the instrument at hand. The symbol indicating the depth continued to jump and finally stopped at 100 meters. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the excitement in his heart, Jiang Chen set the coordinates of the offshore mining platform of future mining on the tablet and typed in the parameters of depth. 7,000 meters. Then, he took a deep breath with a touch of excitement in his tone. "Water drop number 1, set sail." "Yes, Captain." The water drop rushed towards the deep blue seabed. Chapter 464 Deep Sea Construction. Because of the shape of a water drop, it has almost no resistance when it shuttles through the water. In the blink of an eye, it can drive dozens of meters away. Jiang Chen looked at the speed meter and saw speed. 75 nautical miles/hour. My goodness, this is already better than the fastest submarine in the world just from the speed point of view. Looking at the seabed under his feet, Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh. He remembered that the fastest submarine in the world is a Russian P-class cruise missile nuclear submarine with a maximum speed of 44.7 knots. And the speed of this water drop number 1 has reached a terrifying 75 knots. I just don't know how the legendary superconducting magnetohydrodynamic submarine that is still under development compares with the mount under his crotch. The seabed is rocky and the dark green seaweed is like a forest. Colorful fish are freely shuttling in the sea, and jellyfish and squids are dancing to the accompaniment of bubbles. All of this is transformed into a series of shadows on the wall of the water drop. In addition, Jiang Chen also saw the legendary shark. When the water drop passed by it, the big guy ignored it, as if he didn't see it, and disappeared from Jiang Chen's sight. As the depth gradually increased, the light from the sea surface became dimmer and dimmer, and the claustrophobic feeling of the deep blue became more and more obvious. Jiang Chen was not sure whether he had a fear of the deep sea, but he still turned off the wide-angle camera and only kept the front, left, right and back windows on the screen in front of him. Water drop number 1, where are we now? There are still 100 nautical miles to the target location. 100 nautical miles, that means about another hour. Seeing that there was still some time left, Jiang Chen got up and walked into the living cabin. The layout of the living cabin was very compact, with 2 beds with nylon buckles on the left and right sides. If the beds were lifted, the table and wardrobe under the beds could be pulled out. After looking at the internal structure of the submersible with interest, Jiang Chen told the submersible to wake him up after reaching the location, and then got into the sleeping bag-like bed and took a short nap. An hour later, Jiang Chen opened his eyes at the sound of a gentle bell. After getting out of bed and returning to the cockpit, he cast his eyes on the control panel and couldn't help but widen his eyes in surprise. Is this 7,500 meters under the sea? This bottomless darkness, this legendary forbidden zone for life. In the entire area, the only thing that can be seen is the beam of light that shoots into the seabed from the front of the water drop. The shiny black rocks reflect the shimmering light under the light of the searchlight, and the disturbed bottom-dwelling creatures swim with cilia, slowly fleeing into the surrounding darkness. In addition to those strange-looking sea creatures, the cracks in the seabed rock shell occasionally spew out hot bubbles. The dark red fire, like a volcano, brews terrifying energy. At this time, a flat sea fish that is more than 10 meters long slowly approaches the side of the water drop. There is no eye on the saucer-shaped head, and the long spike-shaped teeth look very scary. It looked at the water drop curiously, and touched it with its mouth. But soon it swam 2 meters away, as if it had been electrocuted, and fled without looking back. The electrostatic repellent device on the surface of the water drop can make most deep-sea creatures lose interest in it. On the one hand, this is to protect the safety of the submersible, and on the other hand, it is also to protect the safety of these seabed creatures. Without continuing to play, Jiang Chen quickly manually controlled water drop number 1 according to the distribution of mineral resources marked on the map, and moved it above the molybdenum manganese nodule ore. Throw the mining module. After confirming the target location, Jiang Chen ordered in a deep voice. Yes, Captain. The artificial intelligence replied politely. Soon, the cylinder hanging at the bottom of the water drop separated from the water drop. A series of narrow bubbles were discharged from the back of the cylinder, pushing the fish-like cylinder to slowly float towards the target rock 100 meters, 50 meters, 10 meters. The searchlight was locked tightly on the cylinder, and Jiang Chen watched this scene intently. The dark black rocks were embedded in the grey-black mudstone, and the landscape like a cobblestone road was scattered. The cylinder slowly stopped above the black rock layer, and the engine behind it slowly shut down. Jiang Chen glanced at the map on the screen, and saw that the green dot indicating the position of the submersible had overlapped with the red dot in the center of the mine. After a pause, Jiang Chen gave an order in a deep voice. Mining module, deploy. Yes, sir. A series of bubbles burst out from the bottom of the cylinder, and suddenly a nail dragged a graphene cable, and drilled into the seabed. The cable stretched straight, slowly pulling the cylinder to the ground, and stopped at a position about 3 meters near the seabed. The cylinder slowly unfolded, and the hatches on both sides slowly expanded outward, releasing 2 missile-like objects. The missiles were about 5 meters long, and about 1 meter in diameter. The tail was connected to the inner cabin of the cylinder by a graphene pipe. After the 2 missiles separated from the cylinder, the warheads immediately sank, and a stream of water mist was sprayed from the tail, pushing the missiles to hit the seabed. The warheads dived deeply into the rock. Then a miraculous scene happened. The tail of the warhead suddenly exploded, blasting out a string of bubbles, and at the same time, a circular arc-shaped top cover with a radius of about 10 meters opened like an umbrella. The top cover slowly descended and buckled on the flat seabed rock. From a distance, it looked like a large cylinder connected by a graphene tube to 2 bowls upside down on the seabed. The mining module has been deployed. Please deploy the transportation module. The polite electronic voice sounded again, pulling Jiang Chen back from the shock of technology. The so-called transportation module is actually 4 graphene rails and an ellipsoidal lifter. Because these things are large in size, Jiang Chen did not carry them in the submersible. After all, with storage space, it is really easy to bring objects to the bottom of the sea. After anchoring the water drop number 1, Jiang Chen immediately returned to the end of the world and came to the backyard of the villa. At this moment, his dolphin 10 and a large number of graphene rails from the factory in the 6th block were stored here. In the deep sea environment of more than 7,000 meters, it is difficult for ordinary materials to withstand such water pressure, so high-strength graphene materials come in handy. After throwing these materials into the storage space, Jiang Chen returned to water drop number 1 again. With his hand on the hatch, his consciousness sank into the storage space, and soon, the dozens of bundled graphene rails were thrown out of the cabin. Then Jiang Chen repeated the same method, and went back and forth between the present world and the end of the world several times, throwing all the construction materials outside the water drop. After ordering water drop number 1 to raise the anchor, Jiang Chen then ordered the intelligence system to start construction, splicing those graphene rails, and fixed buoys on the top of the mining module according to the drawings in the memory. The rest of the work no longer needed his own operation. Looking at the 5 hours of construction time, Jiang Chen yawned and returned to the living cabin. All operations can be handed over to artificial intelligence. As the captain, he only needs to go back to the living cabin to sleep and wait for the construction to be completed before returning. Chapter 465 Future Mining Starts Production. 7,000-meter long track is like a seaweed in the sea, swaying slowly with the ocean current. The 500-meter long graphene track is connected at both ends by titanium alloy rings. The 14 segmented tracks form a ladder from the deep sea 7,000 meters below to the shallow sea. The entire set of tracks cost 5 million subcrystals, which is almost equivalent to the total food trade of NAC in 1 month. The 15 titanium alloy rings are the most expensive in the whole set of equipment. They not only play the role of fixing the graphene track, but also can freely control the depth of the water like a submarine. And according to the direction of the ocean current, the titanium alloy ring can also move in the opposite direction through the blade engines at 4 angles, to prevent the huge tidal force from tearing the entire graphene track. When the water drops, robotic arm placed the 6-meter long, 2-meter diameter ellipsoidal elevator on the bottom track. The entire seabed mining device was completely deployed. 2 underwater suction cups crush the marine sedimentary rocks, and then transport the broken rocks to the cylinder through the graphene hose. After the initial mineral selection, the cylinder performs secondary crushing on the rocks. Sedimentary rocks with poor hardness are crushed into powder and blown directly into the sea through a screen. Manganese nodules with greater hardness can pass the screening and be sent to the elevator at the top. When the elevator is filled with minerals, the segmented graphene rails are energized in sequence. The entire ellipsoid is accelerated by the graphene rails to the shallow sea area like a cannonball of an electromagnetic gun. When the minerals are delivered to the shallow sea at a depth of about 100 meters, they can be salvaged with current equipment. The staff on standby at the offshore platform only need to confirm that the minerals have been delivered according to the signal from the sea, and then send out a salvage ship to use divers and trawl nets to pick up the minerals delivered to a depth of 100 meters. When the minerals on the offshore platform accumulate to a certain amount, they will be transported to the manganese nodule refinery on Anger Island by ore transport ships for refining. By then, the iron, manganese and molybdenum produced in the new country will no longer need to rely on imports, and self-production can also meet the industrial needs of Anger Island. After finishing all this, Jiang Chen deployed 2 ocean current generators made by 3D printing on the seabed to power the entire mining facility. Including water drop number 1, the cost of the entire facility has exceeded 7 million subcrystals. Although it is undoubtedly a bit expensive, Jiang Chen believes that this investment is definitely worth it. Apart from anything else, even at the market price of the 6th block, the price of 1 kilogram of molybdenum ore is about 10 subcrystals. As long as 700 tons of molybdenum ore are mined, the cost will be almost recovered. And the reserves of manganese nodule deposits on the seabed are more than millions of tons. The entire set of mining equipment will have no problem mining in the current sea area for the past 10 years. After returning to Coconut Island, Jiang Chen called Yang Yuan and told him that he could start mining. Has the problem of seabed mining been solved? Yang Yuan asked in surprise when he heard Jiang Chen say that workers could be sent to work on the offshore platform. Yes, I will send you the specific mining process by email later. A raw transport ship, a raw scooping ship, 2 divers, and an observer are probably all that is needed. Jiang Chen smiled. Yang Yuan frowned in suspicion. But how do you get the ore out of the deep sea? Don't tell me to ask divers to go to the 7,500 meter deep sea to get ores. Do you think I'm an idiot? Jiang Chen laughed and scolded. Okay, don't worry about it, I've solved it. I'll send it to you by email later, and you'll know what the whole set of mining equipment is. The cutting edge technology of Future Group. Don't be scared when the time comes. Yang Yuan glanced at the phone. Just kidding. After all, I'm a graduate student graduated from the University of Western Australia, and a top student who signed a contract with Rio Tinto in my first year of graduate school. What kind of mining equipment have I not seen? It was the first time he heard of something that could scoop ore from 7,000 meters under the sea. Okay, send me the email first. Okay, wait. Jiang Chen hung up the phone, then edited an email and sent him the electronic file of the concept map and usage of the mining equipment. After hanging up the phone, Yang Yuan held the phone and waited for half a minute. With a buzz, the email was sent to the phone. He opened the email with doubt and browsed the electronic file sent by Jiang Chen. At first, he didn't think much of the mining equipment, thinking that the boss bought the equipment without his reference and must have been deceived by a fake company that specializes in selling fake equipment. But when he saw half of it, the shock in his mind became more and more obvious. This is impossible. What a joke, a science fiction movie. Yang Yuan muttered to himself as his fingers kept sliding on the screen. Let's not talk about anything else, just say that the cylindrical mining equipment, even if it is made of titanium alloy, it is hard to guarantee that it will not be pressed into a ball by the huge water pressure when operating underwater at such a deep depth for a long time. And the ball-shaped mining device on the ground, it looked like it had no resistance to pressure. As for the narrow electromagnetic rail, with today's materials and technology, it is impossible to realize this mining equipment. Yang Yuan's fingers moved quickly, sliding down the document. There were detailed records in this document about how those offshore employees should work. When he saw the last line, he was stunned. This document is an internal document of Future Group. It is strictly forbidden to copy and circulate privately, except for the offshore work details. Please delete sensitive documents such as the concept map of the submarine equipment within 24 hours after reading. At this time, Yang Yuan suddenly remembered that this mining equipment seemed to be produced by Future Group. How many secrets does this guy have? Yang Yuan shook his head helplessly. After hesitating, Yang Yuan still deleted all the parts, except the offshore work details according to the warning content of the last line. Standing up, he immediately walked towards the door. Alan, are you going out? Sophie, who was preparing dinner in the kitchen, shouted. Well, work. Yang Yuan hurriedly put on his shoes and went out. Although he could arrange the staff's affairs through the phone, he couldn't help but want to see the mining device with his own eyes. It was incredible. If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he felt that he might not be able to sleep. Looking at her boyfriend who ran out of the door in a hurry, and the messy shoes at the door, Sophie sighed slightly and put the stainless steel basin on the kitchen table. Although she was quite excited when she came here at the beginning, there are villas, beaches, endless champagne and seafood. However, as time goes by, she always feels that this kind of luxury far away from the city is a little different from the life she imagined. After washing her hands, she returned to the bedroom on the second floor, lying on the bed and browsing Weibo. Only by seeing the envious replies from the sisters at home can her vanity be slightly satisfied. But while she was browsing Weibo, she suddenly noticed an unread private message. Who sent it? She muttered softly and clicked on the bubble. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466. The speaker says he is honest. After sending the email to Yang Yuan, Jiang Chen drove the speedboat away from Coconut Island. As for the water drop number 1, Jiang Chen chose to stay on the island. With the hummingbird drone guarding here, he was very relieved about the safety issues. Even if an elite Navy SEAL team landed on the island, these 100 drones could easily destroy them. Without the support of EMP weapons, this small and flexible drone would be a nightmare for any soft target. When Jiang Chen arrived at Koro Island by speedboat, it was already half dark. Touching his empty belly, thinking of the empty villa, Jiang Chen couldn't help but show a hint of helplessness on his face. I haven't seen Aisha for so long. Jiang Chen still misses her cooking skills. Seeing that it was already this time, even if he returned to the end of the world, Sun Jiao and the others must have finished eating. Forget it, just eat something. It happened that the car drove to the city, and there were many new restaurants around, so Jiang Chen parked the car on the side of the road, and found a Chinese restaurant and walked in. After picking up the menu and randomly ordering a few dishes, Jiang Chen leaned back in his chair, and played with his phone out of boredom. There was nothing in his new phone. After downloading Future Man 1.0 using the restaurant's Wi-Fi, Jiang Chen pointed the camera at his iris, and then logged into his account. Just as Jiang Chen was tapping the screen to synchronize the address book backed up in Future Man 1.0 to the new phone, he suddenly noticed a name. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Seeing that it would take some time before the dishes were served, Jiang Chen tapped on the name and dialed. Hello. You finally remembered me? As soon as the call was connected, Liu Yao's resentful voice came from the other end. Haha, I've been a little busy recently. Did you miss me? Jiang Chen smiled. I missed you so much. Liu Yao said coquettishly. Has your movie finished? It was finished 2 months ago, and the post-production was completed last month. It has been submitted for review, and the release date is on the agenda. Our director also asked me to ask you if you can give the movie a headline push or something. As she spoke, Liu Yao couldn't help but purse her lips slightly to show a happy arc. She can achieve what she has today. It can be said that it is all because of the man behind her. In the crew, even the leading actress is polite when talking to her, without any airs of a big star, and even treats her like a sister. This was almost unimaginable for her in the past. She is a very smart woman, although sometimes this smartness is more of a small smartness, but she knows very well that he doesn't hate her occasional small smartness, as long as she doesn't make principled mistakes. It is precisely because of this that, even if she has achieved her current status, she has not been inflated at all. She knows very well that those who look at her with, or are not looking at her, but the man behind her. Even though many male movie stars pursued her, hoping to increase their fame by hyping up scandals, she rejected them without hesitation. Many female movie stars of neither fame nor fame tried every possible means to get close to her and establish a relationship with Jiang Chen, but she declined calmly. She already had a big thigh, so she didn't need to give other people a face. She just needed to hug the thigh she had already hugged tighter. Headline, no problem. Jiang Chen smiled. This was easy for him. After all, he was the biggest investor in that movie. I love you so much, Muah. Listening to the little woman's coquettishness in his ear, Jiang Chen felt that he was in a good mood. Not only did Liu Yao have big breasts, her voice and temperament also revealed a youthful vitality. She was obviously 24 years old, but every time they met, she gave Jiang Chen the feeling that she was only 17 or 18 years old. Are you free recently? Jiang Chen asked casually. Yes, do you want to take me out to play? Liu Yao said excitedly, holding her mobile phone. I invite you to visit my island. Jiang Chen said with a sly smile. As if she heard the business behind Jiang Chen's smirk, Liu Yao's cheeks were slightly red, and she said coquettishly, pervert. But that voice was more like a passionate one than a reluctant one. After all, every time Jiang Chen gave her that experience, it was so addictive. Do you need me to book the plane ticket for you? Jiang Chen said with a smile. No, I have a salary now. 8 million yuan salary. Sister will treat you to a big meal. It's not given to you by me. Jiang Chen rolled his eyes. 8 million yuan salary is enough to hire a first line star. Fan Bingbing's salary is only 8 million, which can also be ranked in the top 10 on the star income list. Although I don't know if the salary has increased in recent years. Under normal circumstances, the salary of the second female lead in a movie cannot surpass that of the first female lead. But Liu Yao is an exception. Her salary is directly set by the employer. Hate it, don't say that. After all, it's the first time in my life that I have received so much salary. Liu Yao pouted coquettishly with a curved mouth. Okay, whatever you want. Jiang Chen said with a smile. By the way, does your crew have a digital backup of the movie? Digital copy? Yes, but what do you want it for? Liu Yao asked in confusion. Help me ask your crew to make a copy and tell them I want to keep it as a souvenir. Keep it as a souvenir? Liu Yao tilted her head suspiciously. If someone asks for a digital copy before the movie is released, the director will definitely not agree. But Jiang Chen is the only investor of the entire movie after all, and he spent 100 million yuan, and the director is not a big name. So the director can't refuse his request. Okay, but you can't upload it to the internet. If the advance copy is leaked, it will have a huge impact on the box office of the movie. Liu Yao requested in a low voice. Don't worry, after all, I spent 100 million yuan, how can I let others watch it for free? Jiang Chen complained. Hearing this, Liu Yao was relieved and laughed. Well, you are the best. By the way, can you tell me what you are going to do with the digital copy? Jiang Chen smiled mysteriously. Of course I'll go to the movies with you. Watch a movie? Although she was very happy that Jiang Chen wanted to watch her work, Liu Yao still tilted her head in confusion. Didn't we agree to go to the cinema together? The digital experience is definitely not as good as the cinema. Don't worry, I have a home theater in my villa, the kind that costs $6 million US, and the effect is no worse than the cinema. Jiang Chen said with a sly smile. Jiang Chen's sly smile made Liu Yao feel a little uneasy, and she couldn't help but frown. Watching in the home theater, well, okay. I always feel like you are up to something bad. You can't guess? Jiang Chen pretended to be surprised. I can't guess. Liu Yao shook her head vigorously. Then I'll give you a hint. When the movie is playing, you sit on me. Jiang Chen smiled evilly. Hearing the teasing whisper, Liu Yao blushed immediately and immediately understood what the bad guy was up to. Damn, you're so perverted. Huh. I always feel like your voice is so exciting. Jiang Chen laughed, not caring about the waiter who was serving the food looking at him strangely. HMPH, I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going to book a flight. After saying that, Liu Yao hung up the phone. Going to book a flight? TSK, she really is honest, but says one thing and does another. Jiang Chen hung up the phone happily, picked up his chopsticks, and started to enjoy the dinner in front of him. Chapter 467 For a friendly partnership. Just when Jiang Chen was concentrating on enjoying his dinner, a blonde beauty suddenly sat opposite him. Jiang Chen didn't even need to look up to think about who the person was. How did you know I was having dinner here? You must not have noticed that the street next door is the Russian embassy, and your Lamborghini is so conspicuous parked on the side of the road. Natasha pursed her red lips and asked the waiter to serve her a bowl of rice. I remember that Russians can't do without bread for every meal. Is it okay to eat rice? Jiang Chen glanced at the bowl of rice in front of her. It's okay. Before I came to work here, I studied Chinese traditional culture. Natasha picked up 2 chopsticks and turned them between her fingers like a pen. Would a normal person play with chopsticks like this before eating? Jiang Chen silently complained in his heart. What do you want to talk to me about? Jiang Chen asked straight to the point. Nothing special. Can't I just have a meal? Natasha asked the waiter to serve 2 bottles of beer. You like drinking beer so much, aren't you afraid of getting a beer belly? Jiang Chen teased. Are you concerned about my figure? Natasha smiled. Jiang Chen looked away. This chick must be seducing me again. By the way, can I try your virtual reality helmet? Hearing this, Jiang Chen sighed. Didn't we agree to just have a meal? Can't friends talk about this? Natasha said as she took a sip from her beer mug. Of course, when the Phantom helmet is officially released, I will give you one in my personal name. Jiang Chen smiled. Seeing that Jiang Chen obviously didn't intend to reveal any news, Natasha sighed. Okay, the Kremlin wants me to find out how advanced your virtual reality technology is. Don't get me wrong, the reason I ask this is because we are a little out of touch with the world in this regard. But I think even if I ask, you won't tell me, right? That's right. Jiang Chen was very satisfied with Natasha's confession. Giving Jiang Chen a blank look, Natasha picked up a piece of braised pork with chopsticks and put it into her bright red mouth. Even in her gestures, there was a hint of temptation. Jiang Chen chose not to look at her to avoid being distracted. What about the nutritional mixture? Natasha asked. Nutritional mixture? Is the Kremlin interested in nutritional mixture? Jiang Chen laughed. To be precise, the Ministry of National Defense and the Space Agency are very interested. Because we tried to buy the nutritional mixture you produced. Although it didn't make us full, we unexpectedly found that we didn't have diarrhea after drinking it. Ahem. We are eating now. Jiang Chen coughed lightly and reminded. Natasha suddenly realized and changed her statement. Well, it won't excrete. Your Chinese culture is really profound. In fact, what you want to say is trouble. Jiang Chen glanced at her sideways and continued to deal with the food on his plate. So, we want to work with you to develop a nutrient mixture that is easy to carry, can keep people strong after drinking it, and will not cause them to poop at critical moments. Natasha put her elbows on the table after stopping her chopsticks and said to Jiang Chen with a smile. A nutrient mixture that is easy to carry, can allow soldiers to get enough calories after drinking it, and will not cause them to poop at critical moments, right? Jiang Chen put down his chopsticks, took a tissue, and wiped his mouth. And for astronauts, using nutrient mixtures as supplies, we can save space for feces processing. Seeing that Jiang Chen had finished eating, Natasha no longer cared about the wording, and went straight to the point. To be honest, we have already developed this kind of thing, so there is no need to cooperate with you on technology. Jiang Chen sighed and said, but I personally maintain a cautious attitude towards entering the military supplies market. This thing is like feces, and it can't be washed off once it gets on your hands. It's just military supplies, not a tool for killing people. You don't have to be so nervous. Natasha sighed. Just like internet companies like Google, didn't they design mechanical dogs for the US military to transport supplies? After hearing Natasha's words, Jiang Chen fell into deep thought. After a long time, Jiang Chen spoke. Tell me how you plan to cooperate? 3 plans. First, you transfer the production technology of military nutritional mixture to us, and guarantee that it will not be leaked to a third party. We will acquire your technology for $100 million. Too cheap. I don't really want to sell it. Jiang Chen said casually. In addition to being cheap, the organic synthesis furnace required to produce nutritional mixture contains too many advanced technologies. Take the molecular screening network inside, for example. It is something that modern technology cannot do at all. The formula of the nutritional mixture itself is not expensive, but the technology to produce it is expensive. Natasha was not surprised by Jiang Chen's answer. She smiled and stretched out a second finger. Second, we will give you the policy, and you build a factory in our country. We have abundant labor resources and raw material supply market. I only plan to build the nutritional mixture production plant on Anger Island. So many things have happened, and I don't have a sense of security, you know. Jiang Chen said lightly. After glaring at Jiang Chen angrily, Natasha took a deep breath and stretched out her third finger. Third, you produce, and we import. Military type? Of course. Natasha nodded. Jiang Chen was silent for a moment. Can I hear how many orders you have? 20 million sticks per month. Natasha said 20 million sticks? That's 20 boxes of nutritional mixture. If it weren't for the excessive pursuit of low calories, the cost of nutritional mixture would be much cheaper. For example, the production of nutritional mixture now requires the use of special DHC weed, but if the nutritional mixture on the wasteland is produced, any vegetables and fruits can be used as raw materials. To produce nutritional mixtures above grade A, the prices of fruits and meat are very low for a new country close to a large agricultural and animal husbandry country. What price can you accept? Jiang Chen asked. $3 per stick. Natasha suggested nervously. The average daily food expenses of Russian soldiers is 351 rubles, equivalent to $4.6. Considering that nutritional mixture can replace normal diet, as long as the price of nutritional mixture is not too high, purchasing nutritional mixture is not a burden for the Russian army, but can reduce military expenditures on food to a certain extent. Moreover, the nutrient mixture is easy to store. If it is used as a strategic material reserve, a lot of money can be saved. But if the retail price of the nutrient mixture is $6.1 per tube, they can't afford it at all. So when Natasha proposed the price of $3, she was very nervous, fearing that Jiang Chen would think that the price they offered was too low and turn his face away from the discussion. Too low? It's better to say that Jiang Chen thinks it's a bit high. Jiang Chen calculated it in his mind. If a conventional nutrient mixture is produced, the cost is only about $1, which is much lower than the cost of the improved nutrient mixture. And making $2 per nutrient mixture, isn't it too black? And more importantly, this nutrient mixture is very convenient to expand production capacity. There is no need to expand the DHC weed planting area. It can be done with ordinary fruits and vegetables, and even restaurant leftovers. Jiang Chen glanced at Natasha and saw that her face was tight, as if she was afraid that he would refuse. How can this be embarrassing? Since you don't think it's expensive, I'll sell it to you. Jiang Chen coughed and pretended to be serious. Although this price is a little different from my psychological price, considering the friendly cooperation between us, deal. Natasha immediately showed a charming smile on her face, and she was obviously relieved. Thank you for your generosity, and I wish us a happy cooperation. You're welcome. Jiang Chen curved his lips. Looking at the expression on Jiang Chen's face, Natasha frowned slightly in confusion. His vague smile always made her feel like she was being cheated, but she couldn't tell exactly where she was being cheated. Chapter 468 Virtual Helmet starts production. Back in the villa, it was really lonely to sleep alone. After tossing and turning in bed for a while, Jiang Chen traveled back to the apocalypse, and then quietly sneaked into Sun Jiao's bedroom. After lifting the quilt, Jiang Chen was surprised to find two people on the bed. His brother-in-law disappointed. Sun Jiao pulled the corner of the quilt back to her chin, hiding in the quilt, and said with a smile. Sun Jiao's cheeks flushed slightly, and she rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen. Stupid, I thought you went back to sleep over there again. Sun Jiao was used to Jiang Chen running between the apocalypse and the present world. The alien tide had just ended, and she originally thought that Jiang Chen would stay in the present world for a while before coming back, but she didn't expect that he would just leave during the day and return at night. Looking at the laughing Sun Jiao, Jiang Chen was also slightly surprised. At this moment, his reaction in his mind was roughly as follows. There are actually two people. Two people is two people. Jiang Chen smiled evilly and pounced on her with two screams. The next day at noon, Jiang Chen and the girls finished lunch together and got the modified phone from Yao. At first glance, this phone seems to be no different from an ordinary smartphone, except that it is a little thinner, but its performance is much better than that of ordinary smartphones. Most of the components inside are made of graphene materials, and silicon chips have been completely eliminated. In addition, a holographic imaging component is implanted next to the front camera, and the phone can download drone control programs and use it as a drone remote control. The latter function is somewhat overlapping with the function of EP, but Jiang Chen likes the former function very much. He is probably the only one in the world who has a phone that can holographically project the operating interface. After replacing the SIM card, Jiang Chen went to the marshal's mansion again. For some reason, even if the solidified asterisk washed the land in the city center, the life signal in the area was still not eliminated. Obviously, the alien tide has stopped, but the reproduction of zombies is still continuing, and many alien nests have not been destroyed. Fortunately, the drone has been able to enter the area and brought back the specific situation of the city center to the base. It turns out that many alien species nests are not located on the surface, but in sewers, subway stations or underground buildings. The creatures on the surface are indeed dead, but the creatures underground are not completely dead. Even if the fire has dried up the oxygen in the area, many alien species are very resistant to the oxygen-free environment. Only some of them are suffocated to death, while the other part survives. In order to eradicate these troubles, the strategy for the city center is already being deployed. The freed First Corps will serve as the main force of the attack, and with the assistance of armored forces, it will perform surgical operations on the source of infection in the city center. At the same time, Jiang Lin's research on improved incendiary bombs has yielded results. The raw material does not need to use gasoline, but is refined from organic matter of mutant plants such as camu resin. The unit volume combustion heat of the new fuel is twice that of napalm, and the burning time is 3 times that of BM-21 fire. At the same time, the weight of the rocket's combat components has become twice that of the BM-21, and the original rocket's propellant has been replaced with a more efficient rocket propellant. This primitive weapon imitated with future technology has almost nothing to do with the original BM-21 except for its similar appearance. The cost of a single shot is 1000 subcrystals, which is equivalent to the price of buying 20 rifles at the weapon store in the 6th district. Although it is a bit expensive, the power is very considerable. This weapon was named Fireball 1 by Jiang Lin. Although the name is a bit magical, it is unexpectedly appropriate. Any alien species that is stuck by this splashing fuel will turn into a ball of fire. When Fireball 1 produces about 1000 rounds, military operations can be launched in the city center. Jiang Chen ordered the production of Screamer mortar shells to be stopped, and all the freed up military production capacity was allocated to the production of Fireball 1. Although the cost of 1000 subcrystals per unit made him a little painful, he believed that it was definitely worth it. A Fireball spell will reduce the casualties of at least one soldier. For Jiang Chen, who has no shortage of food and clothing, population is the most valuable asset in this wasteland. Everything in the base is running step by step. After seeing that there is nothing to do, Jiang Chen returned to the real world. The troubles in the end of the world have come to an end. Now he should solve the production problem of virtual reality helmets as soon as possible. There are only more than 4 months left until the beginning of next year. When the virtual reality helmets are launched, Futureman technology will face a completely blank market. There are 3.2 billion internet users in the world. Even if 1/10 of them pay for virtual reality helmets, that is 300 million orders. Even if each helmet only makes $500, it is a terrifying $150 billion. Of course, he is grateful that he can prepare 20 million phantom helmets when they are officially released at the end of this year. With the gradual increase in production capacity when the game is launched, Futureman technology will be able to sell about 100 million helmets, which is the most ideal situation. After arriving at Crescent Island by speedboat, Jiang Chen found Ivan, who was training new recruits. This guy had a good life on the island, and his belly was bulging. But from his dark skin, he was almost as fat as Bakary. After seeing Jiang Chen, Ivan saluted neatly and then asked Jiang Chen why he came. The offshore platform of future mining has been put into use. I need you to send 3 soldiers to the island permanently. For equipment, bring the Poison Python anti-tank rocket launcher and the drone backpack. The drone backpack is a single soldier portable version of the Hummingbird drone terminal. It can provide information processing services, ammunition supply and charging for 5 Hummingbirds. In the world without single soldier imp equipment, this thing has become a powerful single soldier weapon. Yes. Ivan stood at attention and saluted. Seeing his serious look, Jiang Chen smiled and reached out to pat his shoulder. Remember to pick someone you can trust. The island contains the secrets of the future group. There is no dispute over the area where the offshore platform is located. It has been designated as a military restricted area. Any ships approaching will be shot directly without warning. Don't worry. With things like truth serum, we have already found 2 traitors in the team. Ivan smiled cheerfully. Although he smiled cheerfully, Jiang Chen always felt that there was a sense of cruelty in the wrinkles squeezed together. As for who the 2 unfortunate traitors were, Jiang Chen was too lazy to ask. He knew that Ivan would handle it properly. Zero tolerance for betrayal. Jiang Chen has always emphasized this. Anyone who goes out to sea for duty will have their salary doubled during the working hours at sea, and the shifts will be changed every 6 months. Although the conditions are a bit difficult, there are still many people who sign up to go. After arranging this, Jiang Chen then followed the Haber Road outside Sun Island and boarded the triangular offshore platform. The area of 2 football fields feels very spacious when standing on it. Because it is in the shallow sea, the offshore platform is very stable. Standing on it is just like standing on land, and you can't feel any shaking. Jiang Chen plans to put the production of phantom helmets here. There is no safer place in the whole country than Sun Island. As soon as the offshore platform was built, Jiang Chen took the architectural design drawings and bid for the construction of 3 factories here from international construction companies, which were located at the 3 corners of the offshore platform. The factories are connected by sealed assembly line pipes. Among them, Factory A is responsible for the rough processing of the helmet shell. Factory B is responsible for the production of graphene chips and neural access components, and Factory C is responsible for the final automated assembly of parts and adding a confidentiality mechanism to the sealed helmet. Finally, the goods are shipped from Factory C. The whole set of production equipment has a very high degree of automation. Only 30 workers with high school education or above can complete the operation of a production line. The requirements for workers are only to put the ore materials in the designated position, stand on the fixed production line, and operate the equipment according to the instructions of the production manual. As for the principle, they don't need to know, and Jiang Chen will not tell them. Qualified products will pass the screening process, and unqualified products will be rejected to ensure the quality of the products. After repeated running in, when the workers are proficient in production, the production capacity will gradually increase. Every worker will undergo security checks when entering the factory, and mobile phones and other things must be handed in. This monitoring procedure can be said to be stricter than the college entrance examination in college, in order to eradicate technology leaks. Don't doubt it. With the technology of Future Group, even a pinhole camera can scan it for you. Any worker who attempts to smuggle spy equipment will be held criminally responsible in accordance with the new country's Commercial Secrets Protection Law, and will be directly expelled from Future Group and never hired again. If a hard failure occurs in the production equipment, the entire production line will stop production immediately. The triangular floating island will be temporarily blocked by the soldiers of Crescent Island, waiting for Jiang Chen to come and solve the problem before resuming production. However, the stability of the entire set of equipment is very high. In the absence of human damage, it should not have any problems in continuous operation for several years. At present, Jiang Chen has instructed the scientists of Shelter Number 27 to improve this production line and study drone hives to replace workers in production, so as to reduce the number of people directly involved in production as much as possible and increase production capacity. As for the shell of the virtual helmet, the main material is an engineering plastic shell with a lead interlayer, which can also be produced with the technology of the present world. Therefore, this kind of rough work with little technical content can be outsourced to other interested companies. Judging from the existing production equipment, it is no problem to produce 500,000 virtual helmets per month. As the wasteland continues to manufacture new production lines, it is expected that the production capacity will be expanded to 5 million per month by the end of the year. After driving the soldiers on the island back to the island, Jiang Chen walked into a factory, returned to the end of the world, and moved the 2 sets of production equipment that had been prepared. Then he placed the 2 sets of production equipment in the corresponding positions in the factory according to the instructions on the drawings. After finishing all this, Jiang Chen patted his dusty hands and looked at the equipment in the 3 factories with satisfaction. When these 2 production lines are put into production, the whole world will be crazy about the future technology. Chapter 469 Night Riot. As early as the beginning of the month, Jiang Chen provided the specifications and models of the Phantom helmet shell to the small private workshops on Koro Island who were interested in it in the form of outsourcing, and gave them the production at an outsourcing price of $50 per helmet shell. According to the indicators provided by Jiang Chen, the cost of producing a helmet is about $40, and the profit of each helmet is as high as $10. Such a high rate of return has even led to a wave of entrepreneurship in New Zealand. Now there are no fishermen in the entire Anger Island. Those who seize the opportunity have borrowed money to purchase production equipment and set up small workshops in their own yards. Only 1,000 helmets need to be produced, and the profit is $10,000. Isn't this much more cost effective than fishing? After a period of time, they will taste the sweetness, and those with bright minds will start to think about setting up a larger factory, expanding production, lowering production costs, and making more money. Then become capitalists who are economically dependent on the future group. All in all, the cost of a helmet is about $500. As for the price of the helmet, Jiang Chen plans to set it at $1,500. Depending on the tariffs of various countries, this retail price will fluctuate by 5%-15% in different regions. Although the price of $1,500 seems a bit expensive, if you think about it from another perspective, it can make you open your eyes for 8 more hours a day. Do you still think it is expensive? This is a second life. Moreover, Futureman technology guarantees that the shelf life of the Phantom helmet is more than 5 years. Helmets damaged due to normal use within 2 years are guaranteed to be replaced, and those damaged within 5 years can be replaced at half price. Such warranty service is undoubtedly very conscientious. As for those users who are confident to disassemble the helmet because of curiosity about the internal structure of the helmet, I'm sorry, you can only pay for your curiosity. In the sales agreement and product packaging, Futureman Technology has clearly pointed out that any act of disassembling the helmet by yourself may cause the internal structure to oxidize rapidly, and helmets damaged by disassembly are not eligible for replacement and half-price replacement services. On the other hand, the current production of this virtual helmet is not high, and it is destined that some people will use it, while others will not be able to use it for the time being. Jiang Chen believes that even at a price of $1,500, this Phantom helmet will remain in short supply for a long time. Late at night, in the virtual reality online game test hall, 2,000 players lay quietly on recliners, conducting routine tests. In the first 20 days, the internal test was conducted during the day. However, the staff later discovered that, because the user's brain is in a sleeping state when the Phantom helmet is activated, if the internal test is conducted during the day, it will cause the player's biological clock to be reversed. Specifically, after the test, even though it was late at night, the internal test players were as excited as during the day. It is indeed a problem to affect the user's biological clock, but this also indirectly proves the excellent sleep aiding effect of the virtual reality helmet. Even insomniacs can sleep well with the virtual reality helmet. Although it is just a detail, it was carefully recorded in the notebook by the staff, which will provide a reference for the actual operation of the game. It is now the 25th day of the internal test. The players have gone from being shocked at the beginning to being accustomed to it now. At the beginning, many mages were still excited to throw fireballs at houses in the novice village. They were killed countless times by the guards at the resurrection point, but they still enjoyed it. In the end, the NPCs in the whole city showed unfriendly emotions to these players, and this kind of idiotic behavior was restrained. In fact, it is not their fault. Anyone who has the ability to cast magic will definitely not use it to save the world, but to do some damage, to see how the NPCs get angry. Don't doubt it. Even if you bring out the psychology of old predecessor Freud, this behavior can be traced. It is precisely for this reason that most of these mages tend to change their jobs to fire mages and necromancers. One is violent enough, and the other is evil enough. For this job tendency of players, game designers far away in another world can only wave their scalpels helplessly based on these cold data. The weather is good today. Let's nerf the mage. These two sentences have almost become daily expressions in Du Yankang's game studio. There was no way, without seeing the specific situation of the players, they could not figure out why these internal testers were so keen on choosing mages, and why they were so keen on using fireballs to set fire to NPC houses. This kind of imagination was almost unheard of in his more than 20 years of career. It was not until Du Yankang later reported this situation to Jiang Chen that the continuous suffering of the mage stopped. It took a century for the virtual reality in the end of the world to go from primary to mature, so the players in that world did not feel so surprised about the freedom and fantasy in the virtual reality, but were more accustomed to it. In short, the internal testers in the present world showed more of a primitive worship of civilization for such a large-scale virtual reality equipment. Just like if you suddenly threw a musket into the hands of the natives, their first reaction would definitely not be to stay away from the gun hole, but to put their eyes closed to see why the black hole would spit fire. Cutting skill damage will reduce gamma play, but if it is not cut, no one will play warriors, which will also affect the player's gaming experience. After careful consideration, Jiang Chen told them to focus on growth rather than skill damage. For example, a warrior's seal level equipment costs about 100 gold coins, with a drop rate of 10%. A mage's seal level equipment costs 1000 gold coins, with a drop rate of 4%. If most rookies can't play mages, they will naturally choose to change their profession. Moreover, at level 20, players will have a chance to reset their positions and choose to change their professions. Players who cannot obtain enough gold coins in the game to maintain the profession of mage will naturally choose to change to professions such as warriors or assassins. In addition, for the unpopular nurses such as priests, the programmers in the wasteland also made similar adjustments. After such adjustments, 25 days have passed, and the playability of the entire game has been improved a lot. Just as when Wendong was operating the archer who deleted his account and retrained, walking in the woods, the helmet suddenly prompted the lost connection icon. Disconnected. When Wendong frowned. The battery should be full. Based on the phantom connected to the server via Wi-Fi, there is indeed a possibility of disconnection in theory, although this is the first time he has encountered it. After clicking the logout button, he took off his helmet, looked around, and found that the internal test hall was dark. He could only vaguely see that the nearby players had almost encountered the same situation as him, and woke up from the game with a blank face. Don't panic, there's a little problem outside. At this time, an internal tester came in and said to everyone through the loudspeaker, "Thanks to the reward from Alliance Leader Dark Moon. As a result, the third Alliance Leader of this book was finally born. Thank you so much. I already owe the two Alliance Leaders a burst of energy. Believe me, I will make it up after my internship ends on April 1st. Don't worry, I have always been very moral." Chapter 470, Beautiful Airport Pickup. As he was close to the door, Wei Wendong noticed that the security guard behind the staff member was wearing a plastic armor. In fact, he had always doubted whether this sci-fi plastic armor could actually be bulletproof. The streamlined rifle in the security guard's hand looked more like a toy from a sci-fi movie. However, if he knew that this so-called plastic armor could defend against the strafing of a 12.7mm caliber machine gun, that wearing this toy could easily overturn a 3-ton military Hummer, and that holding this toy rifle could easily shoot through the bulletproof plate of a military Hummer, I wonder what kind of expression he would make. Mechanical exoskeletons have always remained in the laboratory. In this regard, starring trade is clearly at the forefront of the world. There was a faint sound of explosion outside. However, because the hall was well soundproofed, Wei Wendong only noticed a slight noise when he was close to the door. The explosion made him feel a little uneasy, but just as he was about to ask the person in charge something, the lights in the hall suddenly lit up. What happened just now? Damn, I was fighting the boss, and suddenly the connection was lost. Woo, I finally got a magical piece of equipment, but I didn't have time to pick it up. Did the power go out suddenly? Listening to the chatter of the players, Wei Wendong hesitated and swallowed the questions that came to his mind. The explosion just now, like the faint sound of gunfire outside, made him feel that things might not be that simple. I'm very sorry, the hotel's power system just now had a fault. Our technicians have solved the problem. Please return to the game as soon as possible. The game data has been reset to the time of the fault by the internal server and will be unpaused in 2 minutes. This kind of casual suspension of the server can only be done casually during the internal test. With a head full of doubts, Wei Wendong put on the helmet, lay back on the recliner, and logged into the game. After running around outside all day to work on the bidding for helmet production, Jiang Chen basically fell asleep as soon as he got home. But before he slept for 2 hours, a call from the internal center woke him up again. Attack. Jiang Chen frowned slightly after hearing the statement on the other end of the phone. Yes, there were 5 attackers. One of them remotely cut off the power supply of the hotel, and the other 4 tried to break into the hotel with light weapons, but were discovered by drones, and our people immediately suppressed them. When retreating, the other party used rifle grenades and hit the wall of the hotel, but fortunately no casualties were caused. Molly, the security director of the internal testing center, answered Jiang Chen in a deep voice. Where are the people? Jiang Chen asked in a deep voice. As long as there are survivors, it is not difficult to pry out the information from their mouths with truth serum. 3 people were shot dead while escaping, 1 was hit by a car and killed, and the other committed suicide after being forced into a dead end. Suicide? Jiang Chen couldn't help but frown. Can you confirm their identities? Except for confirming that they are 3 white people and 2 black people, no more identity information can be collected. Millie replied. It turns out that the organization that sent out spies who would rather commit suicide than reveal their identities is not an ordinary organization. Are there any witnesses? The news has been blocked. Very good. Keep the news blocked. Don't let the media know about this. You guys clean up the traces of the battlefield. Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. If the media broke the news of the shooting tragedy at the entrance of the Future Technology Internal Test Center, it would have a certain impact on both the tourism rating of new country and the reputation of future technology. If the matter can be suppressed, it is better to suppress it as much as possible. Understood. Millie replied in a sonorous and powerful voice. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Chen lay on the bed and meditated for a moment, thinking about who could have made a small move on his inner center. However, after thinking about it carefully, there are too many suspects. Future Technology's virtual reality has touched too many people's cakes. Fortunately, this test is conducted on his territory. Starring Trade can use iron-blooded means to punish these rats. All he can do is wait for Asia to train those agents as soon as possible. Jiang Chen shook his head. There is no signal on the island, so even if he wants to contact Asia, he can't. Going there in person, I always feel that it will affect her teaching. Throwing his phone aside, Jiang Chen yawned, turned over and went back to sleep. No matter what, he was a little sleepy today. He had to go to the airport to pick up his flight tomorrow, so he had to get up early. Inside the airport, a beautiful figure in cool summer clothes walked by. She wore black round frame sunglasses and a linen sun hat, and her white lotus-like jade hands were holding a small lemon-colored suitcase. She looked like a celebrity on a secret trip, attracting many tourists. However, this beauty was obviously used to envious looks, so she had no reaction to those looks, and walked straight to the airport gate. Hello. Seeing Jiang Chen leaning against the car door, Liu Yao's eyes lit up, and she immediately reached out to greet him warmly. Seeing Liu Yao dressed like a little girl, Jiang Chen smiled slightly, and also reached out to greet him. But just as he was about to say something, he couldn't help yawning. She rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen in a reproachful manner, and Liu Yao walked in front of Jiang Chen dragging her suitcase. What? You don't miss me so much? No, I encountered some problems last night. Jiang Chen opened his mouth and exhaled, then took Liu Yao's suitcase, walked to the front of the car, and stuffed the suitcase in. Something did happen last night, but Liu Yao obviously misunderstood something, and rolled her eyes at him again. But soon, her attention turned to Jiang Chen's sports car. Wow, is this a Lamborghini? The trunk is actually in the front. Liu Yao excitedly reached out, and touched the car. Do you like it? If you like it, I'll give you one. Jiang Chen said with a smile after opening the car door. Even Natasha complained that his car's bulletproof performance was too poor. For safety reasons, he should also change to a safer car. For example, use C-shaped steel to build the shell, organic tempered glass to build the windows, use an electric engine that can be inserted into a nuclear fusion battery as the engine, and then put 2 missiles in the back of the car. Sitting in the car, Liu Yao immediately took off her sunglasses and put her sun hat behind the seat. Why do you seem excited? No, I just miss you so much. Liu Yao looked at Jiang Chen with watery eyes. Is it true? Of course it's true. Liu Yao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen and lifted her slender legs. The posture of that little woman was indescribably charming. I always feel that you have become more beautiful. Looking at Liu Yao, Jiang Chen touched his chin and nodded. What? Liu Yao asked excitedly. Jiang Chen pretended to be thinking hard, and under Liu Yao's expectant gaze, he was silent for a long time and finally gave an answer. My breasts have become bigger. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and Liu Yao pouted slightly. Hate. Then what do you want me to praise you for? Jiang Chen asked with a smirk as he started the car and drove on the road. Of course it's other aspects, such as face, eyes and so on. Then your face has become bigger. Eh? Has it? Liu Yao hurriedly took out a mirror from her bag and looked at her face. Obviously not. After a long while, she noticed Jiang Chen's playful profile and couldn't help but glared at Jiang Chen in shame and anger. Huh, you actually teased me. Looking at Jiang Chen's playful appearance, she always felt a little unwilling, but she couldn't think of any way to punish him. Her eyes rolled around, and suddenly her eyes curved up with a smile. Drive carefully. Of course, you don't have to worry about my driving skills, Jiang Chen said with a smug smile. Really? You'd better drive slowly. Liu Yao smiled mysteriously, and then stretched out her left hand to the side, as if nothing had happened. The road conditions in Xingguo are good now, and there are few cars on the street. Hiss. The cold feeling stimulated Jiang Chen's scalp to numb. What are you doing, guy? Looking at Liu Yao's actions, Jiang Chen hurriedly stabilized the steering wheel. At the same time, he glanced at Liu Yao, who was smiling mysteriously. Of course it's to test your driving skills. While twisting the cap of the mineral water bottle, Liu Yao said with a smile. Looking at the expression on Jiang Chen's face, Liu Yao felt a little proud in her heart. No matter what happened last night, looking at his expression, it was obvious that he still had feelings for her. As a lover, only when she saw this kind of expression on his face could she feel safe. I wonder what expression Jiang Chen would have if he knew what she was thinking. Something did happen last night, but it was completely different from what she thought. Speaking of which, similar things seemed to have happened before. When they came out of Wanghei University, a similar scene also happened in the car. But the only difference was that the Maybach was parked and had black glass. But for this Lamborghini, the inside of the car could still be seen from the outside. If Jiang Chen parked the car on the side of the road, everyone could see what was happening in the car. But if it was driving on the road, the inside of the car could not be seen from the outside. Can't you wait until you get home to watch a movie? Feeling the soft and boneless coldness, Jiang Chen squeezed out a few words from his teeth with a bitter smile while holding the steering wheel and trying to drive the car straight. When driving, it is easy to be distracted if someone drinks water next to you. No, I'm thirsty, Liu Yao said coquettishly. Jiang Chen's dissatisfaction seemed to make her mischief even worse. With a cunning look in her eyes, Liu Yao unscrewed the cap of the mineral water bottle, kissed the rosy mouth, and leaned over. Friendly reminder, never drink water while driving. It is easy to cause traffic accidents. Chapter 471. If after driving Liu Yao back home, Jiang Chen and her watched the movie Ma Dong Mo's Troubles in the Villa's home theater. Note, it has nothing to do with a certain movie in reality. It must be said that it is quite interesting to watch a movie with the characters in the movie in your arms. It's just that, because Liu Yao disturbed the whole process of watching the movie, Jiang Chen didn't pay any attention to the specific plot. But even so, judging from the few shots of her appearance, the role of the unattainable class flower was still perfectly performed by her. Especially when the second male lead confessed his love and was tactfully rejected by her. The first male lead accompanied the second male lead at the airport and watched her plane fly into the distance. The goddess temperament of Liu Yao was set off vividly, and even her aura faintly overshadowed the first female lead. Although they are all the usual routines of youth pain dramas, who wants little girls to love watching and little boys to accompany them to watch. The integrity of the plot is not important. It is enough to use BGM and sensational pictures to make people cry. no matter what, from the perspective of Jiang Chen, a senior film critic, as long as the publicity is in place. After the movie is released, Liu Yao will undoubtedly become the goddess in the minds of many boys and girls, the unattainable class flower. But what they don't know is that the unattainable class flower is now sitting on Jiang Chen's lap with a look of intimacy and coquettishness. "Okay, your role has left, why don't you come down?" Jiang Chen said with a smile. "No, the movie is not over yet." Her hair was slightly messy, but Liu Yao still pouted her lips stubbornly, twisted her waist, and avoided Jiang Chen's hand. "Okay, I just don't know if you can bear it," Jiang Chen said helplessly. As if she was a little scared, Liu Yao stuck out her tongue and retreated on Jiang Chen's lap after a while. The last gorgeous exit shot, I heard that it seems that the director asked the screenwriter to temporarily change the script to add it. "Oh, really? It feels good. Well, help me get a bottle of champagne." Jiang Chen smiled indifferently. Generally speaking, in order to prevent the supporting roles from overshadowing the main characters, the supporting role scenes will be reduced as much as possible to affect the expression of the film's central idea. Although Jiang Chen doesn't know much about the art of film, it doesn't matter. Who needs him to be rich? "Thank you." Standing in front of Jiang Chen, Liu Yao said in a low voice, after straightening her slightly messy clothes. "You're welcome." Jiang Chen smiled wickedly, closed his eyes funny, and opened his mouth wide. "I'm thirsty, you feed me." Giving Jiang Chen a charming look, Liu Yao turned around and walked towards the refrigerator in the kitchen with graceful steps. Liu Yao is the kind of woman who knows her position very well and what the other person needs. It is precisely because of this that it is easy and pleasant to be with her. In the past 3 days, Jiang Chen has rarely enjoyed the corrupt life of a rich man. He either took Liu Yao to Koro Island to contribute to the local tourism economy, or took her to play on his private island. Thinking about it carefully, he hasn't had a good rest during this period of time. She was either busy with the industrial layout of the future group in the new country, or busy with the territorial dispute in the end of the world. Although she made a lot of money, she didn't spend much on enjoyment. "What a waste," Jiang Chen said, while lying on a beach chair, basking in the sun lazily, and looking into the distance. "Waste." Lying beside Jiang Chen, Liu Yao happily uploaded photos of the southern scenery and asked, "Nothing, I just think the scenery is too beautiful, and the time I enjoy it can be counted on my fingers. Can I understand you showing off your wealth?" Liu Yao pouted, turned her head, and rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen speechlessly, and continued to leisurely poke the screen of her mobile phone with her fingers and post on Weibo. Just now, she posted photos of the private beach. Now many good girlfriends have replied to her Weibo, calling her sister, hoping that she can take her with her next time she goes out to play. Looking at those replies, Liu Yao's vanity was greatly satisfied. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised with joy. She poked the screen with her delicate fingers happily, and replied to her good sisters. She said that she would definitely bring them local specialties, and then treat them to a big meal with the 8 million yuan salary. As for bringing them over to play, forget it. She didn't want to add more competitors to herself. Seeing Liu Yao happily shaking her little feet, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. He didn't even need to look at her to know what she was doing. This kind of little woman's vanity will not make men hate it, because that vanity will also bring satisfaction to men. Many times, what men hate is that women use this vanity to kidnap him, challenge his bottom line, and cause him unnecessary trouble. Liu Yao seemed to know this very well. Although she showed off a man's ability to her good girlfriends without any scruples, she never used Jiang Chen's name to do anything unreasonable outside. She also didn't use her potential relationship with the largest investor to give other people in the crew a face. Sometimes, Jiang Chen couldn't help but admire that she was indeed a near-perfect lover. "By the way, did you include me in your photo?" Jiang Chen asked casually. No. Liu Yao tilted her head, and then as if she remembered something, she whispered, "Of course, if you want to make our relationship public, I don't mind." "No." Jiang Chen shook his head. This chick's thinking circuit was completely different from his. To be honest, Jiang Chen himself didn't care about gossip at all. The main reason he asked this was because I'm thinking about your safety, Jiang Chen said casually. Safety? Liu Yao showed a somewhat frightened expression. Have you messed with any gangsters? Jiang Chen laughed out loud and almost spit out the orange juice he had just drunk. Gangsters? Damn, am I that cheap? Liu Yao looked at Jiang Chen with a confused look on her face, not understanding why he was laughing. Are you scared? Jiang Chen didn't answer her confusion, but just smiled and asked back. If she was afraid, he would considerately cut off ties with her and keep her away from the world she was so called in contact with. Liu Yao was stunned for a moment and quickly shook her head vigorously. Not afraid? Really? Woo woo, don't be like this. What do you hate about me? Liu Yao climbed up with a wronged look on her face, rubbed her calves to Jiang Chen's hand, put her face on his arm, and looked at him with a wronged expression. Jiang Chen's question just now gave her an ominous premonition. Jiang Chen smiled and stretched out his hand to rub her hair. You are absolutely safe in China and in New China. But if you let some people think that your relationship with me is close enough and you are important enough in my heart, then some people may try to kidnap you and then use you to threaten me and exchange equal benefits from me. Although kidnapping a rich woman is the most ridiculous behavior, I don't know how many rich men want to get rid of their original wife and replace the mistress they are tired of playing with. Rather than kidnapping, it is far better to rape you. However, Jiang Chen still thinks that he is a very loyal person, so he has to consider this situation. Then will you come to save me? Liu Yao subconsciously wanted to ask this, but she swallowed it back in her heart in the end. I'm just his lover. Liu Yao felt a little bitter. She regretted more than once that she couldn't give him her first time. If she had met earlier. If. Tears slid down involuntarily and disappeared in the sand. Perhaps this is the sadness of being an actor. Even if the love is deep, that tear will be considered as acting. I'm your regret. But you are also my regret. Liu Yao couldn't help but feel bitter. However, Jiang Chen seemed to see through her thoughts, smiled and said, I will come to save you. Liu Yao opened her eyes in disbelief, and her tearful look looked very lovely. Her trembling lips seemed to ask, but why? But maybe. In the end, all I can do is to avenge you. Jiang Chen sighed. Because he was emotional enough, even if Liu Yao was just his lover, if those people who were circling around him like flies killed her, he would spare no effort to dig those people out and then press the nuclear button without hesitation. The reason why he tolerated those people's fly-like spying behavior was just because they had not touched his bottom line. It's enough. Liu Yao wiped her tears on Jiang Chen's arm and whispered, why is it enough? Can't you protect yourself? Jiang Chen said helplessly. Because I still have some weight in your heart. Humph, can I be a little proud? Liu Yao lay on Jiang Chen's forearm and winked playfully. This girl is not concerned about the problem she is worried about. It's obviously about safety. Why is it about the weight in your heart? Having some weight in my heart is not necessarily a good thing. Jiang Chen rolled his eyes at Liu Yao and looked at the distant horizon. Do you know what is the best way to protect the important people around you? What is it? Looking at Jiang Chen's deep eyes, Liu Yao couldn't help but ask seriously. It means to have enough important people so that others can't tell who is more important. Jiang Chen said with a smirk. Liu Yao was stunned at first, then she curled her lips speechlessly. Do you know what? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said frivolously. The good atmosphere just now was all ruined by your last sentence. Liu Yao pointed her finger, rolled her eyelids, and stuck out her tongue to make a face, then ran back to the blanket and lay down, ignoring him. Jiang Chen smiled but didn't answer. It was just a joke. Thanks to the reward from Lei's 110. The fourth leader of this book is born. Before facing the reality that I still owe 9 more chapters, let me get excited for a while. Chapter 472 Farewell. Recently, the Moro Liberation Organization, MLN, active in the Philippines, launched a large-scale military operation called the Autumn Offensive against Davao Port. Currently, 70% of the urban area of Davao Port has been under the control of the rebels. The new MNL leader Santos called on all believers and Moro people in Mindanao to join the organization, resist the Philippine government's aggressive suppression, restore the sovereignty of the Moro country, and return Mindanao to the Moro people. A spokesman for the US State Department refuted Santos' remarks, saying that his actions were not in line with the Philippine Constitution, and that the pursuit of independence should not threaten the lives and property of ordinary people. He also stated that he would never recognize a country that relied on brutal means to gain independence, and the White House was discussing the feasibility of sending ground troops. Russian President said, when saying this, Comrade should take more care of the feelings of the new Libyan government and the Syrian rebels. It is not just the Philippine rebels who use brutal means. Affected by the turbulent situation in the Philippines, Hillary's approval rating has dropped by 7 points compared to the day before. Some domestic media in the United States questioned the strategy of returning to the Asia Pacific in her campaign platform, saying that it has not improved the situation in the Asia Pacific, but has gradually made the situation out of control. The White House did not respond to this, but only said that it would lend a helping hand to its allies when the time is right. However, analysts commented that it is unlikely that ground troops will be sent to intervene in the situation in the Philippines. With the November election approaching, the Democratic Party does not want to add new variables to the election due to the impact of domestic anti-war sentiment. It seems that Santos did do something. Looking at the news on TV, Jiang Chen couldn't help but smile. At this time, a soft touch suddenly came from the back of his head. "Are you watching the news?" Liu Yao said with a smile, hugging Jiang Chen from behind. "Well, I watch it occasionally." Jiang Chen smiled and turned off the TV. "The Philippines and Singapore are so close, it won't have any impact here, right?" Putting her chin on Jiang Chen's hair, Liu Yao said with some concern. "Are you worried about me?" Jiang Chen smiled and raised his head, rubbing the soft spot behind his head. "What else?" Liu Yao rolled her eyes at Jiang Chen, leaned down and took a bite of her earlobe, then stepped aside. "Breakfast is ready, come on." Jiang Chen smiled, stood up from the sofa, and walked towards the dining table with Liu Yao. In the past 7 days, he and Liu Yao have been living a shameless life. Originally, Jiang Chen thought she was a vast type woman who knew nothing about cooking and housework, but it turned out that he was wrong. This girl has lived alone for so long, it is impossible for her to live without learning to take care of herself. In these days, Jiang Chen's daily life was basically taken care of by this little star, and the villa, which was originally a little dusty, became brighter. In addition to enjoying a comfortable life, Jiang Chen was not completely idle these days. The production arrangement of the Phantom helmet, the addition of the nutrient mixture production line, and some links that could not be handed over to others, could only be done by him personally. In addition, he also deployed the completed 3-engine Dolphin 10 in the Pacific Ocean 200 nautical miles away from Koro Island in the droplet number 1. With the protection of nuclear weapons, it is no exaggeration to say that the new country no longer needs to fear any threats from external forces. As for when to disclose the nuclear weapons, there is no rush for the time being. At night, he was completely immersed in the gentle countryside. In a blink of an eye, it was early September. Although he also wanted to continue this relaxed and comfortable life, the time for the Wanghai City Center strategy plan was getting closer and closer. He must finish the things in the world before mid-September. Outside the airport, letting go of the dragging suitcase, Liu Yao reluctantly hooked Jiang Chen's neck and leaned in for a kiss. "I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. When are you going to shoot the next movie? Do you have a plan?" Reaching out and gently patting her lower back, Jiang Chen said with a smile. "This movie hasn't been released yet. Let's wait and see the box office at the end of the year. Remember to accompany me to the cinema to watch it again. Aren't you shy?" Jiang Chen asked with a smirk. Pervert. The boarding announcement had already sounded. Although she wanted to stay a little longer, time did not allow it. Standing on tiptoe, Liu Yao once again left a lip print on Jiang Chen's face. She dragged her suitcase and turned to rush to the boarding entrance. After leaving the airport, Jiang Chen did not get in the car immediately, but sat on the hood of the car, squinting his eyes and looking at the top of the airport. watching the plane take off and disappear into the clouds. Finally, reminiscing about the warmth of the past 7 days, Jiang Chen grinned, turned around and sat back in the car while hanging up the Bluetooth headset and starting the car, holding the steering wheel and driving the car to the highway. Jiang Chen dialed the phone number of Zai Xiao's office. "Hello." After the call was connected, the cold and familiar voice sounded. 600,000 phantom helmets have been prepared. How are your preparations going? Jiang Chen asked. Only 600,000 pieces? Too few. Zai Xiao leaned back in her office chair, glanced at the information on her notebook, and frowned slightly. Don't worry, by the end of the year, you will see 20 million virtual reality helmets. Jiang Chen laughed. Production capacity is gradually increasing. Just yesterday, the Fishbone base produced 2 more sets of production equipment. After placing these 2 production equipment in the offshore factory, the ideal production capacity of the Phantom helmet has reached 1.1 million pieces per month. As long as the production capacity is increased to 10 million pieces per month before December, and a batch of orders are collected from the 6th block, there should be no problem in completing the target of 20 million pieces before the end of the year. We have contacted 70,000 internet cafes in China and 310,000 internet cafes abroad to launch a virtual reality experience plan. This will require about 1.44 million virtual helmets. Promotion is one aspect, but advertising alone is not enough to make everyone aware of this product. Using physical stores such as internet cafes as a medium to promote products is indeed a good choice. After all, when facing expensive goods, consumers are often very cautious, and Jiang Chen is confident that, after experiencing the magic of the Phantom helmet, no one will be willing to take it off. What is the specific plan? Jiang Chen asked with interest. We provide products, and they provide experience channels. The experience fee is priced at $1 per hour, and the proceeds are split 50-50. I have prepared the detailed plan, but the key is these 1.44 million helmets. Can you prepare them? Pushing her glasses, Zai Xiao said concisely. When do you need it? The sooner the better, but in the initial stage we can cooperate with several large internet cafes, and then expand to outlets in small cities. In the initial stage, we only need 100,000 helmets, but it would be better to get 1.44 million as soon as possible before the end of October. Don't worry, it will be almost done by the beginning of October. As for you, you can almost start arranging logistics. Jiang Chen smiled. I have contacted Mess Group registered in Denmark to be responsible. They have a good reputation and high efficiency. They can be ranked among the top 5 logistics companies in the world. I signed a 3-year contract with them. They promised to settle the shipping costs of our company's products at 90% of the market price. Zai Xiao said lightly with a smug smile on her lips. Hearing this, Jiang Chen couldn't help but sigh at Zai Xiao's workability. She had arranged everything he could think of. Haha, I didn't expect you to have arranged it. Then I'll ask you to worry about things other than production. Haven't I been worrying about it all the time? Zai Xiao said unhappily. Hearing Zai Xiao's complaints, Jiang Chen just chuckled. How have you been lately? Yeah, not bad. Hearing Jiang Chen's concern for her, Zai Xiao's heart warmed slightly, and she answered, while twisting her hair with her fingers. The female secretary standing by was surprised to peek at the expression on the president's face. She had worked beside Zai Xiao for so long, but it was the first time she saw this serious president with such a feminine expression on his face. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473 Virtual Reality Experience. In the corridor of the Penguin Company building, a project manager in a suit and tie walked by quickly. He was holding a document in his hand. From his expression, he must have encountered something good. Standing in front of Ma Huateng's office, Du Shu took a deep breath, adjusted his tie, and then raised his hand to knock on the door. Please come in. Hearing the voice from the office, he immediately pushed the door and walked in impatiently. Boss, the acquisition has been negotiated. The people at Wanghai Lexiang Technology have already heard that with the support of our capital injection, the Deepoon virtual reality device they are currently developing has been updated with the ability to connect directly to the notebook data cable and has solved the original compatibility issues. It just passed the test yesterday and can perfectly run Microsoft's Minecraft and Eve Valkyrie and other games that have been logged onto the virtual reality platform. The former has a considerable reputation in China. Since the launch of the first virtual reality promotion trailer in September 2015, it has also attracted much attention in China. Although the latter is not well known in China, it is also because Eve chose the wrong agent. Negotiate with Icelandic CCP for the agency rights and make sure to get it. Ma Huateng said in a deep voice. Without a good game, it is very inconvenient to promote the virtual reality business. People can't spend money to buy a VR device just because questions can log in on VR devices. But Eve's partner Century Jiang Chen is also talking about Valkyrie. They have already represented Eve, and we are not at an advantage in the competition for the sequel Valkyrie, Dushu said with difficulty. Ma Huateng smiled mysteriously. We have money and a better user base. In the past, it was because he didn't pay attention to Eve, a niche game, but now think about it, since it is a virtual reality, what can be more fascinating than flying freely in the star space? Confirming the boss's determination to win, Dushu breathed a sigh of relief and continued. What about Microsoft's Minecraft? Isn't that a standalone game? Ma Huateng frowned slightly. The game content is mainly standalone, but it can also be carried out in community cooperation. Dushu replied. That is to say, without using a large server as the server, a private bridged LAN can also be connected. Ma Huateng smiled. That's the theory. The project manager nodded. Don't worry about it, we only do online games. The spirit of the internet is sharing, and players of that kind of game will naturally crack it. Ma Huateng waved his hand. The project manager was stunned and suddenly realized. Boss, you are wise. Do you need to say that? Ma Huateng glanced at him, but flattery still sounds very comfortable. Ma Huateng leaned back in the boss chair with a little complacency. This emerging future man technology is indeed a bit difficult to deal with, but fortunately, the foundation of the Great Penguin Empire is here, and it is easy to enter the field of virtual reality. The reason why it has been sitting still is only because the mobile market has not been saturated. You are just a new company, and you dare to compete with the Big 3 for market share? It's just a dream. But this war has been provoked after all, and he is more concerned about the actions of the other two giants. You should also pay attention to the movements of Alibaba and Baidu. I feel that they may be in this business. The door suddenly opened, interrupting the conversation between Ma Huateng and Manager Du. The man at the door was seen panting and holding the door frame, holding a wrinkled document in his hand. Ma Huateng frowned slightly, and he was very dissatisfied with the rude behavior of the employee who came in without knocking. Dushu next to him glanced at the man with gloating, and soon returned to his serious expression. After taking a few breaths, the man finally stood up straight, and did not bother to apologize. He walked to the desk of Leo Ma into steps and tremblingly placed the document on the desk. Boss, Future Man Technology has a new move. This is the contract I copied from the internet cafe with which we have a cooperative relationship. Huh. The man finally caught his breath and said. Ma Huateng glanced at him and cast his eyes on the document on the table. Virtual Reality Experience Agreement? Ma Huateng flipped through the document casually and frowned slightly. For some reason, the actions of Future Man Technology made him feel a little uneasy. Xiao Du. Hey. Dushu immediately stood up and waited for orders. You are in charge of the company's virtual reality. After get off work, you can stop by this experience store to experience it for me. Ma Huateng said casually. Yes, boss. Okay, you two go and get busy first. Dushu walked out the door immediately. The man who rushed in a hurry hesitated and wanted to say something. But seeing the unhappy look on the boss's face, he realized that he was reckless and immediately shut up and followed Dushu out of the office. In the center of Wanghai City, Xingaihu Internet Cafe was crowded with people. There were many empty machines, but the counter was still crowded with a dark crowd. When these people enter the internet cafe, the first thing they say to the front desk is usually, "Network administrator, help me open a machine for the Phantom helmet." "I'm sorry, sir, the only 4 Phantom helmets in the store are already in use," the waitress said with a smile. She has repeated the same words at least 50 times. "What? It's full." The man widened his eyes. "No, why do you only have 4 machines here?" This set of words obviously did not satisfy the man. If it weren't for the fact that the waitress was a beauty, he would have been unable to help but curse. As a loyal fan of Futureman technology, he has been following the official website of God Level Continent and looking forward to the promotional short film updated every month. In addition, he also followed the anchors who were selected to participate in the internal test. Although these anchors often keep silent about the content of the game, when it comes to whether the game is fun, even a certain anchor with a paralyzed face showed a smile like an internet addict. It has been almost half a year since the official website was launched. Now he can finally play it. How can he not be anxious? As soon as he saw the Experience Store news pushed by Futureman 1.0, he immediately put down his work, locked the nearest cooperative internet cafe on the map and rushed over. However, now, the people in Jiang Internet Cafe actually told him that it was full. What a joke. It is the largest internet cafe nearby, and there are only 4 phantoms among thousands of machines. How long will it take? The man said impatiently. Seeing the man's unfriendly look, the new waitress almost cried. "Okay, queue up. Of course I know how to queue up. I just want to know how long it will take," the man asked aggressively. Unable to bear it any longer, the waiter who had finished his work immediately pulled the newcomer to the back, and then personally went to the front and said politely, "Sir, do you want to use the computer normally, or experience the virtual reality service? If you want to experience the virtual reality service, please register and queue up on our computer. There are 51 players in front of you in the queue. Please come to experience it after 102 hours, and we will remind you by text message 5 hours in advance. In addition, if you have time in the evening, you can also choose to join the night queue. There are currently 23 players." When he heard that the queue would take 5 days, the man immediately got angry and slammed the counter and shouted, "Fuck, what a crappy internet cafe. I have to queue up to use the internet. I don't want to play anymore." "Okay." Although he said so, the man did not leave, but stared at the waiter, waiting for him to show a compromise expression. However, the waiter was obviously an old hand, looking at him with a smile, without showing any signs of weakness. Seeing that this man was stuck in the queue, the people behind him were already dissatisfied. "Can you guys in front hurry up and get out of here? If you don't want to play, you're wasting your time." "That's right, stop dawdling like a sissy." Hearing the voice from behind, the man blushed. He wanted to leave, but looking at the long queue behind him, he was afraid that if he left, he would not have the chance to experience it. Who said I don't want to play? Just queue up. How much? Isn't that what you said?" There was a booing from behind, but the man was obviously going to ignore it. "Say whatever you want. I'm thick-skinned enough. 6 yuan an hour." The waiter smiled and pointed to the sign at the door. The price was not expensive, and the man felt a little relieved. It costs 12 yuan an hour to experience an Apple computer. This future man is quite conscientious in technology. The same scene also happened in major cities such as Guangzhou City, Shenzhen City, and Changchun, and gradually moved to the inland areas. A few days later, the Phantom helmet will also be seen in major international cities such as New York, London, and Paris. When the first player reluctantly put down the virtual helmet and excitedly picked up his phone to share his shock with netizens, it announced the beginning of the first close contact between human civilization and the virtual world. Chapter 474 Arena Mode. The price of virtual reality experience varies according to the consumption level and tax rate of each country. For example, the price of internet cafes in China is 6 yuan per hour, while in the United States it is about $2, and in Europe it is basically €2. Half of the fees collected belong to the internet cafes, and the other half belongs to Future Technology. After 2 months, internet cafes can also buy the helmet at a price of $2,000, and there is no need to share the revenue with Future Technology. All players' accounts are linked to iris information and can be bound to future 1.0 accounts. In order to enable everyone to play the game, future technology also has clear restrictions on everyone's experience time. That is, each person's single game time can only last for a maximum of 2 hours and can only log in once within 72 hours. According to the idle rate of the helmet, this time limit will be gradually relaxed. But the last one is obviously redundant. Just 24 hours after 21 large internet cafes in Wanghai City took the lead in launching virtual reality experience services, the internet was already in an uproar. Many forums, BBSs, and Weibo were flooded with the keyword phantom. Players who were lucky enough to experience it first expressed their shock in words. It's an immersive virtual helmet. The previous rumors turned out to be true. In my lifetime. It's incredible, unimaginable. My body didn't move at all. It's hard to describe the feeling. It's like traveling to another world. Don't call it future group. It's more appropriate to call it Black Technology Group. Those who support the name change, please like it. The HoloLens was mailed directly from abroad. I only played it for 2 days, and it's on sale at half price. Hurry up if you want to buy it. Contact information is here. Words alone are not enough to describe the excitement of the players. However, not only the players, but also the scientific community are shocked by the achievements of future technology. Even the Nobel Committee sent an email to Future Technology, asking the person who solved the technical problem of the exchange of neural signals and electrical signals in the Phantom Helmet development project, hoping to nominate him as a candidate for the next Nobel Prize. However, when Sun Jiao asked Jiang Chen about this person's name, Jiang Chen refused the Nobel Prize with a heavy heart. Even if he said that he developed it himself, I'm afraid no one would believe it. With his lifestyle and personal resume, he is completely different from a rigorous scientist. This technology is destined not to be named in the Nobel Prize. Regardless of how shocked the players and the scientific community are, as many players are eagerly looking forward to the virtual reality, Futureman technology has finally opened up the tip of the iceberg of god-level content, the Arena Experience project. Although it is an experience, it is actually a broad internal test. All experience players will be arranged in the experience server. Although they cannot enjoy the complete game content, they can experience the arena mode that the internal test players have not played yet and enjoy the fast-paced game park experience. In the arena, the player level is limited to level 10 and the profession is self-selected. After the game starts, players can use system gold coins to buy equipment from the arena merchants and then participate in the arena battle, that is, park with other players. You can choose to play alone or in groups, and there are 12 types of terrain to choose from. Everyone is a novice, so there is no problem of advantages and disadvantages. However, there will be a tutorial for beginners when you first enter the game. To a certain extent, the data in this arena will affect the balance of the professions on the day the game is officially launched. On the other hand, the arena also allows players to get enough of the addiction of throwing fireballs. I believe that, when the game is officially launched, the prepared players should not rush to choose the mage. But it is also quite funny. Many relatively peaceful players, after entering the game, actually choose to negotiate with the opponent not to fight, but walk around the map, and actually treat the arena as a tourist attraction. Some mages, after playing enough fireballs, actually use their staffs to pry up the mud on the ground. As for those players who deliberately choose a character of the opposite sex and then check whether they have that thing, according to the laws of the country, harmonious content will naturally be handled harmoniously. If you really want to play H games, wait until the helmet is released, follow the online tutorial, and play with a Singaporean VPN. However, strictly speaking, the Phantom Helmet does not provide audio and video, and all scenes are directly unfolded at the brain level, which belongs to the category of daydreaming in terms of mechanism. Therefore, whether virtual reality content can be applied to the current film and television and game works management regulations remains to be discussed. After all, it is a bit too much to use laws to restrict people's dreaming. Of course, the main theme of the arena is still fighting. But in addition to this, what also shocked the players was the instant translation function introduced by Future Technology in the game. Players from all over the world are in the same experience server, but they can communicate with each other unimpeded. The instant translation subtitle function can help players translate the words of the other players into the common language of 12 countries. With so many amazing functions, future technology has once again become the focus of public and media discussion. For example, in an American TV talk show, the host and Gates had a discussion about future technology. I heard that a virtual reality device called Phantom Helmet has been released recently. Gates, have you tried it? Of course, I went to a nearby internet cafe to play it on the day it was released, and then I finally played it yesterday. Gates made a helpless expression, and the audience burst into laughter. He is no longer the CEO of Microsoft, but only participates in this program as the founder and shareholder of Microsoft. The host also laughed and continued to ask, if such a thing is officially launched one day in the future, and you buy it the day after it is released, aren't you afraid that the kind of plot in film and television works will happen after you put on the helmet? For example, you will be trapped in a virtual world and can't come back after playing the game. That's a good question. My answer is, Gates lowered his voice mysteriously and then laughed. You have to play, even if you can't come back. The host showed a surprised expression on his face. As the founder of Microsoft, is it really good that you are so optimistic about your competitors' products? I'm optimistic about virtual reality itself. I admit that, after experiencing the Phantom Helmet, the sense of reality really shocked me. But what I want to say is that the HoloLens system launched by Microsoft also has its own unique features. For example, the concept we advocate is to allow users to interact with virtual things in reality rather than getting further and further away from reality. In other words, Microsoft and Futureman technology have different focuses? The host asked with a smile. Yes, you can understand it that way. Gates crossed his legs and leaned back in his chair. Which one do you think is more in line with the trend of the times, HoloLens or Phantom? The host asked a sharp question with ill intention. The audience watched attentively, but Gates was in a little awkward. His expression changed for a few seconds, and he coughed and gave a vague answer in an affirmative voice. I can only say that both have their merits. Just as Gates was struggling with how to deal with the host's difficulty, a certain research institute was also struggling with the Phantom Helmet. At this moment, in a national research institute, Director Khan, with a gloomy face, looked at the researcher who was walking towards him and asked in a deep voice, Xiao Wu, how is it? Have you found anything? The researcher named Xiao Wu sighed and shook his head. X-ray scanning is ineffective. Future people's technology is very cunning to place a lead partition in the helmet. How about disassembly? Director Khan asked immediately. The smile on Xiao Wu's face became even more bitter. We just started cutting, and were about to study the structure inside, but the protection mechanism was immediately triggered, and all the circuits were burned into a paste. The only thing we can be sure of is that the material they used is likely to be the legendary graphene chip. Because after the outer shell was removed, those things were very thoroughly burned into carbon dioxide. As for the key neural access device, it was even more severely affected, and the molybdenum material was completely melted into a ball. Is there no way to restore it? Director Khan couldn't help asking in pain. Xiao Wu shook his head. The damage is too great. Director Khan was furious when he thought of the man surnamed Wang in Wanghai City. Although his official position was not as high as that of the man surnamed Wang, he still couldn't stop his contempt for him in his heart. What a fucking spendthrift. After cursing out loud, Director Khan shook his head and walked out the door with a sigh. He now needs to ask his superiors to see if he can contact the future group. It would be great if they could cooperate in virtual reality technology. Although he also knew that the difficulties involved might be considerable. Chapter 475 Progress of Leading People Through Time. The patent office has sent someone again, hoping that we can provide complete information to register the patent to avoid the patent being preempted by other companies and prevent possible professional disputes in the future. Reply to them. The head office will seriously consider their proposal. Next. Penguin hopes to cooperate with us in the field of virtual reality. The negotiator sent by the other party said that if we can cooperate in neural access technology next, At this moment, Jiang Chen was sitting at his desk, with his legs on the table, and making a video call with Sun Jiao on his laptop. Perhaps because he felt good about himself, at this moment he always had the illusion of an emperor attending the morning court. Okay, although I basically agree with you, can't you let me finish my report properly? Sun Jiao put down the documents in her hand and sighed helplessly for Jiang Chen's continuous interruption of her speech. However, judging from the slightly raised corners of her mouth, she should be in a very happy mood at the moment. As a woman with a career ambition that is no less than that of a man, Futureman technology is like her child. Watching it grow into the towering tree it is today, her sense of accomplishment is no less than that of Jiang Chen. According to the highest offer from venture capital firms, the current market value of Futureman technology has been estimated at $100 billion, which is 10 times higher than the $10 billion valuation last year. The net worth of Ms. Sun Jiao, the CEO of Futureman Technology, who holds 1% of the shares, has also soared to $1 billion. This was something she could not imagine a year ago. She still remembers the words that Jiang Chen said with unreasonable confidence that night. At present, this company is still in the conceptual stage. Don't you feel excited? You will become China's Steve Ballmer, and I will become China's Bill Gates. She still remembers how she doubted him that night. But now looking back, his confidence is not unreasonable. He has indeed become China's Bill Gates, and even Wall Street's evaluation of him is higher than Bill Gates. Because it took only 1 year for Futureman Technology to develop from a small workshop in an apartment to the current market value of $100 billion. Is there anything else to report? Jiang Chen asked leisurely, leaning back in the boss chair. The internal test will end in 17 days, and virtual reality experience stores are also being rolled out around the world. I believe that within 4 months, people will have a preliminary understanding of virtual reality, and then Futureman technology will strike while the iron is hot and put the phantom helmet on the shelves, and then just wait to count the money. At present, I have released 500,000 pre-sale quotas for helmets on the official website, priced at $1,000, all sold out within 3 minutes, and many players who didn't buy expressed the hope that another 500,000 quotas could be released, excluding the cost of $500, making $250 million in 3 minutes. This feeling is simply too exciting. Then open another 500,000. Jiang Chen said excitedly. Open 500,000 at the beginning of each month. This is my suggestion. Seeing Jiang Chen's look, Sun Jiao couldn't help but smile. Intensive opening of pre-sale quotas will lower the psychological price of the product in users. Only a hungry market is the most dynamic market. After listening to what Sun Jiao said, Jiang Chen was obviously stunned. Is there anything wrong with what I said? Seeing Jiang Chen didn't say anything, Sun Jiao couldn't help but frown slightly. Jiang Chen shook his head and smiled nonchalantly. Nothing, I just feel that you are more cheerful than before. This time it was Sun Jiao who was stunned. Really? Sun Jiao couldn't help but pinch her face. But when she noticed the playful expression on Jiang Chen's face, her face suddenly turned red, and she reached out to turn off the camera. Ahem. After coughing heavily, Sun Jiao sat up slightly at her desk and said with a forced serious face, let's continue the topic just now. Where were we talking about? Although there was no camera, Jiang Chen still roughly imagined what kind of expression she had on the other side of the computer, and a smile appeared on his face. Pre-sale. Yeah. Yes, pre-sale. The rest of the meeting was held in a black screen. Although Jiang Chen suggested turning on the camera several times, Sun Jiao declined it on the grounds that it would interfere with work. Is this girl shy? His intuition told him that it was probably the case. After closing the laptop, Jiang Chen stretched and got up and walked towards the bedroom. It was approaching mid-September, and the attack on the city center was imminent. It was time to go back. After taking a car to the warehouse at the southern end of Koro Island, Jiang Chen put on his bracelet and prepared to sweep all the food and other supplies in the warehouse to the end of the world. But at this moment, he suddenly found that the interdimensional material transmission device that Linling gave him was ineffective. Although it was a little depressing, fortunately, the area of the storage space was now 300 cubic meters. It didn't take much time to empty the warehouse several times. It just cost a few dozen points more in subcrystals, but this cost was completely negligible. After instructing Wang King to arrange the staff to move the food according to the usual practice, Jiang Chen came to Linling's laboratory and found Linling fiddling with bottles and jars in front of the experiment. "What are you doing?" "Fuel. Your Aerospace Science and Technology Research Institute needs a fuel that burns longer and releases more heat. I just happen to have some research in this area, so I just helped." "Tell me, what do you want from me?" Linling said proudly, while shaking the test tube filled with suspicious transparent liquid. "There seems to be something wrong with your interdimensional material transmission device." Jiang Chen took out the bracelet and placed it on Linling's laboratory table. "Impossible." Linling frowned slightly, put the test tube back on the test tube rack, and reached out to pick up the plastic ring on the table. After looking at it for a while, Linling frowned and thought hard for a while. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and walked to a table and took out a cube the size of a Rubik's cube from it. "Put this in your subspace." Linling handed over the thing in her hand without hesitation, after returning to Jiang Chen. Taking the cube, Jiang Chen casually threw it into the storage space, and then Linling did not reply, but returned to the experimental equipment on the other side of the room and turned on a device that looked like a radio. "What is this?" "A receiver for the resonance wave of the crane particle. That cube can transmit back the coordinate information of the location, as well as the image." "How is it possible?" Linling looked at the rhythmic ripples in disbelief. Looking at the lines that looked like an electrocardiogram, Jiang Chen frowned in confusion. "What happened?" "It's not about what happened. Your subspace has become a universe, although it's a small one." Linling's eyes flashed with excitement. "I call it a small universe. No matter what it is called, it is simply a miracle in physics. The subspace composed of gravity can actually give birth to physical rules. It's incredible." "Sorry, I don't understand what you are saying," Jiang Chen said embarrassedly as he looked at Linling, who was excitedly pressing buttons on the screen. It's nothing. You don't need to care about these details. There is no problem with my interdimensional material transmission device. Just slightly modify the coordinates, and it will work." As he said, Linling threw the bracelet back into Jiang Chen's arms. "Is it ready to use?" "It's ready." "Then what are you doing now?" Jiang Chen looked at Linling excitedly operating the computer and had completely forgotten what her original work was like. "Collecting data, in short, studying your small universe," Linling said excitedly. "What's the point of this?" Jiang Chen sighed. "The point is that maybe, because of my research, you will be able to take people through," Linling said. Jiang Chen held his breath. "Oh, are you surprised?" Seeing Jiang Chen didn't say anything, Linling glanced at him proudly. "Very surprised, or rather, very pleasantly surprised. If you can really figure out a way to bring people through time, I guarantee you'll have endless puddings." Jiang Chen's face showed an ecstatic expression. He promised Sun Jiao that, if he had the chance, he would definitely take her to his world, to see his school, to see where he had lived. Not only that, if he could bring people through time, he would be able to integrate the technology of this world at a faster speed, and then with the rich resources of the present world, he could easily push the two worlds together. It's the puddings of the whole world. Linling was afraid that Jiang Chen had forgotten the agreement, so she corrected him immediately. "The puddings of the whole world are the puddings of the whole world. Don't worry." Jiang Chen laughed. "Are you kidding? His assets are tens of billions, so why would he worry about a few puddings?" Smiling happily, Linling was about to say something, but suddenly bent over and coughed. "What's wrong with you?" Seeing this, Jiang Chen hurried forward. "No, nothing." When Jiang Chen touched her shoulder, Linling's pupils suddenly turned red, but soon returned to normal. Shrinking back and avoiding Jiang Chen's hand, Linling took a few breaths and stabilized her breathing. "Are you okay?" Jiang Chen asked worriedly. "It's okay, don't worry." Linling covered her left eye and waved her other hand at Jiang Chen. "Anyway, get out quickly." "Is it really okay?" "It's okay, just get out." Although being driven out was a bit hurtful, Jiang Chen still listened to Linling's request, turned around and left her room, and closed the door for her. "Is it really okay?" Looking at the closed door, Jiang Chen muttered in his heart. For some reason, Lin Ling's condition always made him feel uneasy, or an ominous premonition. At this moment, the majestic outflow of clean particles was spreading outward from the city center like a silent cry. This last cry. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.